Welcome back, everybody, to the Shannons Nationals live stream here at the Men Motorsport Park in South Australia. We go from one main event to another in many respects, from sprint mode to endurance mode for the latest event of the Australian GT Championship. Cars are on the grid here now for 3 hours of racing, which will bring you live here. We'd love your interaction during the course of the coverage too. So just at the bottom of the feed there on Facebook, be sure to fire in your questions. We'll endeavour to answer them along the way. A couple of drivers we can tell you that are at the wheel at the moment. I've just seen Shane van Gisbergen in the lane, so Liam Talbot is at the wheel of the Lamborghini. What else can we can tell you here? Trying to see if Craig Baird is at the wheel of the Scott Taylor Motorsport machine. It looks like Scotty Taylor there. So we're almost set to go racing. It's going to be a fantastic afternoon of GT action here. To call all of it, a guy that knows the category exceptionally well in Sean Henshelwood, and alongside him, our own Aaron Noonan.
Thanks, Gregory. We're looking forward to this. 3 hours of GT racing. Let loose some fantastic cars onto this fantastic track. And it's the Mercedes-Benz AMGs that are up the front. They lock out the front row of the grid. Max Twigg starting outside the front row. Peter Hackett on pole position. He and Dom Story with the best combined times across the first two qualifying sessions earlier today. Big names in this race. Jamie Whincup, Shane van Gisbergen and Garth Tander double dutying. So Tander's coming fresh from a race win in TCR Australia, and he'll step into this Audi a little later on. Car number one, the Jeff Emery Valvoline car. There it is with that great shot of the rear wing of the R8. There is the McLaren. Fraser Ross will start the race, sharing with Ryan Simpson, the 720, as we get ready to roll on away. 3 hours on the clock. Timed race for this second round of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship, round 4 of the CAMS Australian GT Championship. So there are 2 titles on the line here, and it really is the case for Jeff Emery of being in the best position. He leads the GT Championship, and he and Tander lead the Endurance Championship. They won the first round at Phillip Island last month. So great to see these cars rolling. They're on the warm-up lap now. Let's run you through the order. Who's starting this race. Peter Hackett on pole in car 63. Max Twigg is alongside in car number 8. Liam Talbot, as Greg referred to, is in the Lamborghini 129. There he is. Yasser Shahid in the 777 Mercedes. He shares that car with Jamie Whincup. Fraser Ross in the McLaren next. Jeff Emery in the Audi, position 6. Scott Taylor starts the 222 Mercedes. Justin McMillan is in the 48 KTM, one of 2 of the crossbows in this field. Richard Gardner in the Lamborghini car 69, the only trophy class car in the field. And Dave Crampton rounds out the 10 cars, the second of the KTM crossbow. Sean Henshelwood is alongside me. Yes, it's a small field, but it's packed full of quality drivers, not just in GT racing, but in the overall format of Australasian motorsport. This is set to be a really good race.
It certainly is. In fact, talking to Tony D'Alberto after he was on top early in qualifying, he said that the race, the quality is so good, you can't afford one slip. Slip was the prime word during qualifying, of course, because the conditions were treacherous, changing every lap. And we saw at one stage Fraser Ross making up 2 seconds a lap in the 59 racing McLaren 720S GT3. He got to the top of his leg, but on combined times he will start on the 3rd row with Ryan Simpson, who is turning his first laps on not just the circuit, but also in the wet in the McLaren. So that will be interesting, but great to see Peter Hackett and Dom Story after the dramas that they suffered at Phillip Island during the opening round of the CAMS Endurance Championship, back on the top spot and looking to charge and make up ground. I talked to Dom earlier in the weekend. I said, really, you don't have much choice this weekend, do you? You've got to win this thing. And he said, absolutely. If we want to have another title, they won it in 2017, the endurance title. The car alongside them on the front row are the reigning champions of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship, Tony D'Alberto and Max Twigg. So Max starting. I think Peter Hackett's behind the wheel potentially this time. Yes, I can see the orange flashes on the helmet. And that's the advice we're getting from timing anyway. So that should keep us pretty accurate, up to date. We've got 3 compulsory pit stops. We'll get into that during the course of the race. 3 hours of action. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
And in very general terms, we'll likely see the second driver, the slower of the 2 drivers in each car, run about a third of the race. You want to see the pro drivers doing as much time as they can possibly do, but there's a limit on that. You can't just stick your superstar gun in for 2.5 hours and let the other driver do half an hour. It's really going to be down to strategy. It's going to be down to making sure that you follow the rule book. But we'll see some of the stars in the cars later on, the likes of Whincup, of Van Gisbergen and Tander and Craig Baird as well, who is highly experienced. Dom Story's a young star. Tony D'Alberto is highly credentialed. It is a really good field of names that you will know from all sorts of categories. And when they all come together in GT racing, the sparks tend to fly. All Mercedes, front row of the grid. Pete Hackett, Max Twigg, head-to-head for that long run down to turn 1. I wouldn't mind betting that Lamborghini, though. Bit of power there. Liam Talbot might find himself making it 3 wide before we get to turn 1.
Well, Liam Talbot was all smiles before the start of this race. He said, keep a close eye on the 129. He said, I'm loving my time in this Huracan. His debut for Trofeo Motorsport and in the Lamborghini here this weekend, and he's looking forward to big things. Once those lights go out, rolling start, of course, we are underway with the second round of the CAMS Endurance Championship. Peter Hackett on the inside, Max Twigg on the outside. We are getting set to go and we're underway. Good jump from Max Twigg, but how about Yasser Shahin down the outside? This is very much shades of 2018. He was right in the mix. Three Benzes, side by side.
Oh, together they got away with it. That could have been a drama, but Shahin to the lead. He went the long way on the front row of the grid. We thought the Lambo was going to jump. We forgot about him. 777 has sliced and diced his way through. Scott Taylor trying to go to work on the back of Liam Talbot. The Lamborghini slipping back. The Mercs all nearly wiped themselves out at the first corner of a 3-hour race. That could have been absolute disaster. They got away with it.
I was going to say before the start of this, they're surely not going to want to mess this up in the first corner because they've got a long way to go. There's plenty of racing to do. The one that really got lost in all of this, of course, was the Fraser Ross McLaren. He got swamped off the start. He was starting on the third row. He tried to keep out of trouble. But those three Benzes, they were definitely looking for trouble. Scotty Taylor, the fourth of the AMGs, back in position number 7 or thereabouts at the moment. And a good start too from Jeff Emery, who is the points leader in both the sprint and the endurance championships and the outright championship, of course. He's doing a great job in the number 1 car he's sharing with Garth Tander.
So the Mercs carry on. Love the part of GT racing where you'll be able to follow the race result as the car currently runs on the screen in that front of the windscreen, that electronic number that's displayed in there. But it's Yasser Shahin who starts the way that we weren't really expecting, all the way down against the pit wall. He got to the lead. Peter Hackett second, then it's Max Twigg. Margin back to the Audi of Jeff Emery, who's got a bit of pressure from Fraser Ross. The McLaren's looking to make a move down the inside, turn 17, and that'll be a change of position, but it's a long way to go. Remember, all of these cars have differing pit stop times depending on the driver rankings and where they lined up on the grid.
There is, and in fact, looking at those times, it's roughly 2 minutes and 1 second per team, but that varies depending on the drivers. And we will go through that as the race unfolds. Of course, as you rightly say, Aaron, each driver has a different driver grading, and that will have a bearing. But first time round, Yasser Shahin obviously punching out purple sectors. He got to the front, but that move down the outside off the start, that was impressive. I think last year, though, they made a big move. It was down the inside last year, of course, in the car he was sharing with Luke Youlden. Although, unfortunately for them, they didn't manage to translate that high qualifying position into a result. I'm sure Yasser and Jamie Whincup will be looking for that this time round after the frustrations that they faced at Phillip Island whilst they were right in the box seat. So very, very interesting to see how the race plays out right at the moment. As Peter Hackett's just pumped out the fastest first sector. He's doing a great job at the front of the field. Second position at the moment, only half a second down on Yasser Shahin.
Long way to go. This is a timed 3-hour race. It's the second of 3 enduros this year for the GT cars, and at a track that really suits them. Long sweeping fast corners, and the Mercs are up front. 1, 2 and 3. McLaren 4, Audi 5, Lamborghini 6 with Liam Talbot at the helm. That's the car that he shares with Shane Van Gisbergen, and we've seen Shane in, well, he's had a go in just about every GT car you can find. He's had a Porsche at the Bathurst 12 Hour before. He won it in a McLaren. He's been in the Mercedes this year at the 12 Hour with Craig Lowndes and Jamie Whincup. Now he adds a Lamborghini to the mix, and he is right among the field. As we take a look at the highlights of this start, Max Twigg moving across, Yasser Shahin going with it over the white line, staying with it, and then there was contact. All 3 of them bumping together. That very easily could have been an absolute disaster for all 3 of those AMGs. They managed to get away with it.
I was just going to point out, I think one of the cars that we need to be keeping a close eye on is the Fraser Ross McLaren, and he's charging at the moment. 1:48.5, quickest lap by almost a second over Yasser Shahin. So he's really making up for that start. There he is on screen, just a lick of dust as he puts a couple of wheels on the edge of the curve. You see that dark skies in the background, just light rain again. It's plagued us pretty much right through Friday and into this morning again in qualifying. It just started to fall before this race. We want to see dry conditions. We want to see slick tyres. We want to see those lap times start to fall. Because we had a 1:48.5 last time round. 12 months ago was about the benchmark time. We saw Jamie Whincup in the low 146s in unofficial testing on Thursday. And we're looking forward to those times starting to fall already. Fastest time, 1:48.5.992. Here's this great battle for the honours in GT4. New colours this weekend for the number 48 entry, the M Motorsport Macmillan Engineering Group entry of Justin McMillan and Glenn Wood. Currently Justin behind the wheel, and Dave Crampton. We saw this off the start, remember, at Phillip Island. Aaron, they were running nose to tail for those early laps, and you made the comment at that stage they'd be locked together like that. And I need to be touching wood, I think. We don't want to give the commentators curse. Not long after that, unfortunately, a technical issue with the 50 car of Dave Crampton. He couldn't steer through the final corner and just threw him hard into the barriers. That left us with a 30-minute stoppage, red flag stoppage. And that really did have impact on the race, not only to the teams, obviously, but to the strategy. And that really did play out right through that 3-hour race. We are with Greg Rust down in pit lane for a bit of an update.
Sean, I've wanted into Eggleston Motorsport. So this gentleman here crunching the numbers is in fact the son of CAM's president, Andrew Papadopoulos. This is Chris Papadopoulos, who's got a huge amount of motor racing experience. But I wanted to grab, if we could, a quick word with Dom Story, who was a little nervous on the start, and he probably doesn't like us for doing the replay of that either. That was game on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were all going to come unstuck there in turn one, but they just gave each other just enough room, which was pretty good. So, Pete's got an okay start. We've just got to settle into a rhythm now, and he said the car's okay after that all touch, so we should be all right.
Okay, cool. And the feedback so far is that everything's running okay?
Yep, everything's fine, so just going to box on and get his stint out of the way. I think it's going to be interesting into the race.
I love that. Let him box on. Good on you, cheers.
Bit of a fight here with Max Twigg. Fraser Ross is trying to join in the party and be the party pooper in the Papaya McLaren. Trying to get up there and run with those three Mercs that run 1, 2, 3. Yasser Shane will hand over to Jamie Whincup later on. Peter Hackett to Dom Story, who Greg was just with, and Max Twigg will hand over to Tony D'Alberto, who's already been on the track a couple of times today, qualifying the Merc and qualifying and racing the Honda in the TCR race. And I'm not convinced that this weather's going to be kind to us for the rest of the day. Just when we think we've got it sorted, we're going to get a dry track or a wet track, it starts to change. The clouds quickly turn and that blue sky disappears. So these guys have to keep an eye on that. It's where that falls in among your driving time, and when you ideally want to stop for your co-driver change, that can really throw it apart. You might end up with a driver in the car at the time of the race that you don't really want. Have a look how dark it is over the backside of the circuit on the run down towards turns 17 and 18, the final couple of corners here. It's dark, the wipers are coming on. Oh, this is messy stuff. This is the stuff you don't want. You just want to be one or the other. Make it dry, make it wet. When it's in between, it's a nightmare, whether you're in the car, you're engineering, you're doing strategy. It's getting bad down at turn one. They're on slick tyres. They've got warmth, but that'll only take you so far.
This is really going to mix things up again, exactly like Phillip Island.
There we go.
The race leader's off already. Lots of runoff. Max Twigg off to nearly tagged the front of the 777 entry as Yasser Shahin rejoined. That was tight, not what Max Twigg needed to see. And you can see just how much wheel work Yasser Shahin's having to do as he negotiates his circuit. 4.95 kilometres, we're about 4 and a bit to get back to pit lane if they're going to make the change. But do you make the change? We've seen it blow through all weekend and disappear just as quickly as it arrives. You're talking about track temperature, you're talking about tyre temperature. These things are important. If they've got enough grip, they may be able to just weather the storm, as it were, and get through a couple of laps until the conditions dry up again. That looks pretty much like that part of the circuit is almost dry. So something to consider. It makes it more interesting for the engineers, and certainly from the driver's perspective. They're sitting in the seat having to deal with this, and they're uncertain, of course, of what each corner is going to be like.
Remember that GT cars, they're on a control Pirelli tyre, so it's not a case of having different brands. Everyone's on the same type, so you've got the same rubber to play with here, but it's how you pressure it, how you use it, how you drive it, and which one you're on, whether it's got tread or no tread. When the weather's like this, your point's exactly right. You can easily make the quick fire call. Oh, it's sprinkling. Come in, put the wets on, be safe. But then you might have to come in again because it's not the tyre to be on quickly. Twigg stands aside. Shahin dives to the inside. Max is back down the inside. Good fight here. Careful, boys. Got through with it. fight for third.
Yes, they're doing a little bit of muscling. Of course, he's been doing some one-make GT championship stuff in Asia, the Audi Sport RLMS Cup, and learning a lot about driving these cars and driving them very, very closely. So he's quite happy to muscle, and Max Twiggs just felt that.
Peter Hackett out front, 1 second to lead back to Fraser Ross. Cam's in the lane.
Crews have been out to the wall just to keep an eye on the conditions here. Now, there's a big cloud cover directly above me that it looks like it's going to rain on the track, but the wind's actually coming from over my shoulder. And you can see it's a bit of blue sky there, but behind that is where there is a lot of rain coming. The crews are coming in and out. It's great to have radar equipment and everything else, but you just never know what's happening in the localised area of a racetrack.
Now, you need a bit of old school engineering here. You can stand in the bunker and look at the computer screen and the radar all you like, but sometimes it's better to just wander 5 steps out of pit lane and see if it spits on you and see what the weather's actually doing and where the sky and where that weather's coming from. It's easy to get a bit lost in the tech stuff. This is a good fight here. Lead of the race is on the line. Fraser Ross is the fastest car on the track at the moment. He set the fastest lap of the race a few ago, 1:48.23, 2:9 I should say. Now he's putting the pressure on Peter Hackett. Lap car up in front, one of the KTMs, dive to the right, gets on through the number 50 car of Dave Crampton, who is now running in the lead of that class because the sister car has had a drama and been off the road. So they're separated by a bit of margin on the track, about 7 seconds between them. Not 7 seconds here, about 7/10 between the Merc and the McLaren. 3-hour timed race, long way to go. Plenty of nervous co-drivers watching on here wondering what they're getting themselves into when they get in these cars and what the weather is going to do. But that McLaren's been making margin in the last couple of laps. And that weather that we saw, the dark clouds down at 17 and 18, this camera shot was the one that alerted us to us a little bit earlier on. It looks a little nicer at the moment. Bit of blue sky there as Cam referred to in the background. So it moves really quickly around here.
Yeah, I've seen cases of teams make the snap decision. If they're first into pit lane and change the tyres and it continues to pour with rain, they're in the box seat. But sometimes that can backfire. You can come down pit lane, it seems to have blown through again. It's a premature move. The amount of time you lose in pit lane is just not worth it, especially on a track that's not so warm. The wets wouldn't do too badly, but they're not going to cop it for too long. Talking to the Pirelli, you see just a little bit of oversteer, and he's just missed the apex and lost a bit of ground now. A bit more oversteer on the exit of the corner as he gets onto the gas early. It's still a little slippery. They're tiptoeing these cars around the circuit, and just to add to what you were talking about, Fraser Ross has just turned out a 1:58, 10 seconds slower than his best. He lost a bit that time round, but Peter Hackett also a 1:58. So the track condition has changed just a little bit. Temperature not there. Talking to Chris Montgomery from Pirelli Motorsport before the start of the race, he said they haven't seen much more than 12-degree track temperature since Thursday. So the tyres just aren't really coming up to temperature, so they're going to start the pressures higher. They're not so worried about the wear on the Pirelli DHD2 tyre, but they are concerned about how the tyre maximises its performance on the track temperature. The sun comes out, it starts to go up a little bit more. We saw the start of the race, there was a bit more sun, so they may have just lowered the pressure slightly on the grid before the start of the race. That could backfire slightly, so it'll be interesting to see just how this one plays out. See on the top left of the screen, the fastest laps for each of those cars as they stand right now, but they were set on lap 3, we're currently on lap 7, so it's 4 laps ago before that shower of rain.
We may mention this before. You've got the numbers here. There's a unique system in this form of racing on how long the pit stops are for each car. All the drivers are ranked and rated with their experience. Are they a pro? Are they an AM? How much success have they had in GT racing and in other categories? How are they ranked and rated? Where did they start on the grid? What's the difference in pit stop time between these two cars? Because at the moment, they're on the track and not separated by a great deal. When they come to the lane, what's the difference?
Total time stopped. This is stopped, not from pit entry to pit exit, but total time stopped. 121 seconds for the 63 entry. But what's interesting is it's 115 seconds for the 59. If you go back to Phillip Island, there was actually about 6 seconds more for the McLaren over the bulk of the rest of the field. So there's been some minor changes to that. Qualifying position obviously had a bit of an impact on that too. The driver gradings for the two drivers in that Papaya McLaren. But at the front of the field, Dom Story and Peter Hackett, two experienced campaigners, they will stop for 121 seconds. Max Twigg and Tony D'Alberto, 121. Shane Van Gisbergen and Liam Talbot, 121. Yasser Shahin and, well, they're on screen, Yasser Shahin and Jamie Wincup also 121 as Liam Talbot looks for a move. We're down to pit lane. Catch up with Cameron.
I thought I'd grab one of our co-drivers, Ryan Simpson. I was used to talking to you in a Lotus last year, and you've upgraded to a McLaren. Fraser Ross doing a great job out there at the moment.
yeah, fair upgrade from the Lotus to McLaren. But yeah, Fraser's doing good. Nervous times. A bit more rain out there again, so he's doing a good job. Got a bit boxed in at the start, but he's back running there at the front, just watching, hoping that he's going to get past Hackett there and put us into the lead.
How have you found the adaptation to GT equipment? So we know you in production cars previously. We've known you all the way back in Formula V and Formula Ford as well. These are a different bit of kit altogether.
Yeah, a lot faster. Yeah, a bit more downforce and aero that the other cars didn't have. But loving it. Definitely a lot better to drive than anything I've ever done. So, yeah, great opportunity to drive McLaren.
And particularly this circuit as well. I mean, it's almost made for GT cars.
Yeah, first time at the bend, and so far pretty happy with it. Haven't done much dry running yet, but yeah, a few turns there that just keep turning on themselves, and really enjoyable, and does suit the car.
Good luck, Ryan.
Thanks very much.
He brings a lot of experience to the table. He was a gun in Formula Ford. He was a gun in the Kumo V8 touring cars, and did a little bit of time in what's now Super 2 as well, and has found a pretty happy home here in this McLaren. Good fight we've got here between Max Twigg, Yasser Shahin, and Liam Talbot in the Lamborghini. 3rd, 4th and 5th. They are about 11 seconds away from these guys, who are the race leaders. Peter Hackett down at turn 1 with Fraser Ross in the McLaren. Of course, Peter Hackett when Australian GT was reborn in 2005. He was there then in a Lambo. He's been in this series for quite some time. Remember, he's with the Erebus team with the Mercedes when that SLS came into this series. And he's been a regular with Dom Story in the EMS team in the Mercedes in more recent times with a newer model car. He's been there and seen it all, and a great history of GT racing in Australia, but also the Australian Endurance Championship. It's had an interesting life over its time. Remember, in the 70s it was Man Champ, and the touring car Enduros were the Australian Endurance Championship, and then it went through a lull. It kind of spluttered and died in the early 90s when the touring car championship took a bit more precedence, and Bathurst and the like, and then the Australian Endurance Championship returned with CAMs in the early part of, well, about a decade ago with production cars, and in more recent years it's been for GT cars. Replay here of Max Twigg with Shahin running wide down at turn 1, so not the first time the 777 car has ventured off into the runoff area there, but manages to resume and get rolling again. Last year the champs were Max Twigg and Tony D'Alberto. They're back again. So it's been the Mercs who have won the last 2 Australian Endurance Championships, and 2 of those combos that have done the winning are in this race, because Hackett and Story won it in 2017. Back in 2016 it was Nathan Morecambe and Grant Denyer in the McLaren 650, the superseded McLaren. We've stepped it up now to the 720 that Fraser Ross and Ryan Simpson at the wheel. I think it's great that the Endurance Championship's back. It's a really important part of CAM's racing history, and this is perfect for it. GT cars, they're built for enduros. This is exactly the sort of award that should be going to cars like this, for races like this.
Oh, 100%, and the teams get fired up by it too. They're made for longer races. The sprint race format is fantastic, but so too the endurance format of 3 hours, sometimes out to 4, because we see 12-hour races. How good is the Bathurst 12-hour every year? That is growing. There's more endurance racing on the horizon, certainly for Australian GT. Windscreen wipers on for Yasser Shahin. So lots to talk about with respect to the potential of this category long term. We go back to this battle now. It looks like Justin McMillan has caught onto the tail of David Crampton despite that spin. But certainly there was a little bit of tiptoeing around during those slippery laps, and that's allowed McMillan, who is the more experienced of the two, because he won Class B at the Bathurst 12-hour. We're just talking about it earlier this year. He's been overseas with the KTM Crossbow GT4. He's done some miles in both Asia and in the Middle East, so well versed with the car now, and a great exponent of the Ryder engineering product. Of course, he had the Camaros. He was a big promoter of the Lamborghini Gallardo REXs and the LP600 before that. So a lot of miles with Ryder engineering equipment. Of course, this is where these cars were put together with factory support from KTM, so great to have them in the country. Great little car, 2-litre Audi turbocharged engine, in fact very similar to the engine that powered Garth Tander just a few minutes back to his victory in TCR.
It's a little bit of a difference from what we've seen Justin in over the years in the GT. You know, Camaro, engine with a bit of car around it, Lambo, unbelievably powerful. And he's a big, tall fellow, actually, to fit into one of those cars. It's a fair effort to be able to hustle it around like he does. Talking to hustling, this is still going. The fight for the lead, Peter Hackett, Fraser Ross, Mercedes and McLaren. And we are just about hit the 20-minute mark of this 3-hour race, round 2 of the CAM's Australian Endurance Championship here at the Ben Motorsport Park.
I don't know about you, Noots, but I'm pretty happy to see the 20-minute mark after the dramas we struck at Phillip Island.
I thought we were going to be down 3 Mercs on the first quarter
We
here.
might not have been getting past the first minute mark the way things started, but they got through and the battle has been on. We saw this and we spoke about it at Phillip Island. The way Fraser Ross is just placing that car, he seems to be able to put it wherever he wants to. He's got the drive, he seems to have the power. He's not pushing past on Peter Hackett just yet. He may think that he doesn't need to based on those compulsory pit stop times, and they have got a good advantage over the battle for third. So there is a little bit of advantage at the moment for what he has. He doesn't need to put excessive wear on the tyres. 4 sets of the Control Pirelli DHD2 slick tyre to use for both the qualifying sessions and the 3-hour race. So they have enough rubber under them to do the job. So it's interesting to see how they manage that. We're talking about cooler temperatures. So tyre wear shouldn't be too excessive, but certainly the way Fraser Ross is throwing that 720S GT3 around, he is looking to hustle and get through to the lead as quickly as he can and provide Ryan Simpson as much of a lead as possible by the time they come to their first compulsory stop.
And they've got 13 seconds, Sean, back to Max Twigg, who sits in 3rd place. Yasser Shahin still 4th. Liam Talbot 5th in the Lamborghini. Jeff Emery 6th, but he's another 10 seconds behind that trio who are fighting for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Scott Taylor next in 7th in the Merc that he shares with Craig Baird. He's another 50 seconds back down the road.
Oh, there we go.
This is on. This is for 3rd. It's almost like we've replayed this a few times because we've seen Twigg and Yasser Shahin together on the road a few times over and under and having a good old fight. Liam Talbot's ready and waiting in that Lamborghini to pick up the scraps if anything happens here. Wipers are back going on the 777 car.
I'm not sure they're back going. I'm not sure he's had time to switch them off. Might have been throwing the arms around so much in those early laps that he's actually flicked a couple of switches. But certainly the pace that Yasser Shahin's showing is very, very good. He's off, interestingly, to the Spa 24-hour race in 2 weeks too. Back in an Audi R8 LMS GT3 with his rivals from the Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup. So that'll be an interesting thing for him. He said that's on the bucket list. It's something I'd always wanted to do. So he is getting plenty of miles at the moment. So they're back through lap traffic again. Put another lap on the 2 mighty KTM crossbows, and Dave Crampton still leading that. He'll be happy with that too. He's keen to make amends this year for what was a bit of a hit and miss season in 2018. He felt that they could probably have got more out of the car. It took him a while to get comfortable in it. He really does typify the gentleman driver's tag. He's come into this later in life and really enjoyed it. Did a lot of radical competition in a prototype style sports car, a lot less power than the KTM crossbow. But that prepared him to jump into the M Motorsport team, and he's really enjoyed his time in that car.
I think in the background, Justin McMillan was able to get his way through and grab that spot. I think the blue car's in front of the orange car. It's nice that they've changed the colours to make it easy when it's in the background of shot to know exactly which car is which. We know the difference between these two. They sound and look different, completely different philosophical reasoning from both these manufacturers with these cars. The Merc that has been from the SLS before, the AMG that's running now with that front engine, the McLaren, it's at the other end of the car, but look at them together on the road, completely different philosophies with these cars, and they're separated by tenths. It's unbelievable.
6.3 litres of thundering AMG V8, naturally aspirated, front of the car versus 4-litre twin-turbo alloy V8, because the AMG is as well, but in the middle of the car, it's in front of the rear axles, but only just. So the power and the way the car works is different. Talking to Liam Talbot, interestingly, who spent a lot of time in Porsches, of course, in Carrera Cup Asia this year, he has admitted that the way that car actually performs, the Lamborghini, versus what he's used to with the Porsche is different. Took him a little while to dial himself in, but at the moment you could argue he's got that sorted. Currently in position 5 and on the tail of Max Twigg and Yasser Shahin.
So Merc leading the way, half a second to the McLaren, 15 seconds back now to Max Twigg, who sits in 3rd. Let's jump down to the lane. Here's Eminota Francesco.
Just checking in with Tony D'Alberto, and Max was in a bit of a battle there. What's it like when you're in the garage watching on, you're not actually behind the wheel? Did you get nervous?
No, I don't get nervous, but we're watching on, seeing how Max is going. He's had a great start. He's pretty good at those starts. He generally does the start of the endurance race, and then the plan is for me to hop in later on today. So he gets the race underway, gets in a good position. I'll just bring it home later on.
A lot of people were talking about how much they're having fun in the wet conditions, but you want it to stay dry, don't you?
Well, it'd be nice. We've had a lot of wet running this weekend, and I think we've got a pretty good race car in the dry. So it'd be nice to keep it consistent and just finish the day off. It's going to be difficult enough with the sun going down later on today.
Let's not forget that you've had a massive day as well. How was that TCR race for you?
Oh, look, I got to the lead at the start. Unfortunately, spun. We had slicks on. The track was damp, but you know, there's no way we could have run wets, and I was sort of the pioneer. I didn't think I was going that quick, and the rear stepped on me. I caught the curb, and off I went. So I was into the paddock, and yeah, we finished 8th in the end, so the car's got good pace, but yeah, I sort of stuffed it up at the start.
But they look like a lot of fun to drive, especially around a track like this.
Yeah, we had a heap of fun out there. I was racing Moff the whole race. We were swapping positions, caught up to Russell Engel, got around him. It was all happening. It was actually a lot of fun, the race, but unfortunately we were at that mid-pack. I prefer to be at the front.
Thanks, mate. Good luck for tomorrow and for the race today.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
He gets to do it again 2 more times tomorrow with the TCR cars. Tell you, I'm not sure where the pot of gold is around here at Taylor and Ben Shawn, but judging by that rainbow, it's somewhere over there behind turn 17.
I'm not surprised there's a pot of gold somewhere around here, but certainly the racing has been impressive across, well, certainly this season with the GTs. Tony D'Alberto has been enjoying doing a little bit of double duty, but loves getting behind the wheel of the number 8 WM Waste Mercedes alongside Max Twigg. They've been a great partnership the last couple of seasons. Of course, the reigning Australian Endurance Championship champions as a result of winning the championship round here 12 months ago. So this race was instrumental in setting up that title run. So they'll be keen to try and impress upon the field that they can do that again this weekend. Currently shown in position 3. The one that surprises me a little is Jeff Emery is currently shown back in position number 6. And he's a good 12 seconds back from Liam Talbot, who's at the tail of that battle for 3rd position, further back from these guys. So things are very interesting from their perspective. They've got a bit of work to do, but they came into this round leading the championship points. So a bit more work for both Jeff Emery and for Garth Tander to do.
And of course, it only really takes a safety car to bring them straight back into the game, even though they're 30 seconds off the lead and 12 seconds away from the car in front. No, we have not designed this. This is real. This is a real shot here at the Ben Motorsport Park. It's been a couple of days of weird and wonderful weather. The cars have been actually turning their fastest laps of the race on the last lap. The top 6 cars in the race went faster than they'd gone all day so far in the first 25 minutes of running. Leaders at the line, completing lap 14, timed 3-hour race. Peter Hackett leads, Fraser Ross second. Length of the front straight before you see Max Twigg in the background. He's 15 seconds off the lead. These top 2 clearing away and building a margin. But as we saw at Phillip Island, particularly for Hackett and Story, we had a red flag after the KTM was in the wall. They had a drama with the battery. They couldn't restart. The long red flag, well, actually it wasn't a very long red flag, but it was long enough to cook their car and it wasn't able to get fired with the battery. So all of this work, all this effort, could easily compress, but having a smaller field, less likelihood of a car potentially having a drama. And because there's so much runoff here and lots of grass, it would take a car pretty much being in the sand or way off the road in a wall to end up seeing that safety car on the road. So green flag all the way so far. I can't help but think, though, some of those clouds are getting darker in certain places, and they get dark really quickly. So if it turns weather-wise, it'll turn fast.
Well, I think the only downside of the beauty of a rainbow is it's tending to suggest there's a little bit of water in the air somewhere with the sunshine. So that might be a signal that these guys are in for it again. Now, windscreen wipers on just about all the cars at various points during the course of the last lap or so. The McLaren had them on. You can see Peter Hackett's got them on. It's not exactly what they want to have. I mean, we spoke about it at the start of the program. You talk to the drivers, they either want it all wet or they want it all dry. And that's understandable because you are, as Tony D'Alberto was just saying, you're a pioneer. You get to a part of the circuit where suddenly the conditions have changed. You can't rely on what's going to happen. If you made the wrong tyre choice and you've got a 50-50 chance, then you could be in all sorts of trouble. It throws the event away. The one thing about plenty of runoff here is that's great, but if you get into that wet outfield, you could be a passenger for quite some distance and ultimately hit something because it's been so wet. There's been so much heavy rain in the region over the course of the last few days that off track is not where you want to be. The old adage, keep it on the black stuff.
And these 2 are doing the job at the moment. Garth Tander, he's already done a job today. He's already had a race win. Can he get another one? Well, he's got 2 in a row now. He's remembering one at Phillip Island in the GT car. Then he's won the TCR car today. And at the moment, the car that he shares with Jeff Emery sits position 6. 28 seconds off the lead. So Jeff Emery, that margin was 30 before to the leaders. He's managed to chip away a little. And that time across the line, he sets his fastest lap of the race. Starting to work his way into the game. 1:48.63, half a second away from the fastest time of the race so far from Max Twigg in the WM Waste Mercedes. That was 2 laps ago. So the track a little nicer at this stage. They got their eye in a little bit too. A bit more rubber down on the road. This is a good fight. There's not been more than half a second between these top 2 for the majority of the race so far. We've a lapse just under half an hour of this 3-hour race, and with the time certain finish this afternoon due to be at 5:48 plus 1 lap, given the way that the sun has been in the last few days around that time of the day, that's going to be really tricky for some of these drivers in that latter part of the race. I hope they had some carrots for tea last night, because they're going to need their vision. It'll be pretty dark by the time we get that checkered flag out.
Well, they've actually changed it to 5:38 plus 1 lap, I think.
And we did sneak forward on the start time by 10 minutes, so we've picked up and moved the window.
Took
so
the grid
good.
walk out because we're probably a little bit too chilly for the people hunkering down in the visitor centre at the front of the Bend building here.
Would have had to be a grid run to stay warm.
I do wonder whether or not there has been something work against the number 1 Valvoline entry. They elected, as they did in Phillip Island, not to turn too many laps during practice on Friday. Now, practice on Friday, both the 20 and 40-minute sessions, well, took place in pretty wet conditions. Jeff Emery went out very early to do 3 or 4 laps, and he said, I went out to do camera laps so we could film where the water was on the circuit, so we could review it and just see if it came into play during the race. They didn't turn as many laps as their rivals. Just about everybody was out there, both sessions, tooling around, getting more data. That may have worked against them in that slippery period early in the race, because it's unusual to see that Jeff Emery, who has just gone, at the very second I've said that, set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:47.9, to be 27 seconds down, or just under 28 seconds now, on the race leaders. That doesn't seem right to me, but it could be that that's just as a result of that. So we'll see how this one plays out. Again, we're only about a sixth of the way into this race.
Ken?
Just the update on Jeff Emery down here. I followed up for you guys. You were asking what had happened to him. He just lost a little bit of time when the rain fell, and the team actually told him he could up the speed. So Jeff Emery just managing the car, managing the race pace at the moment. No one showing any signs of concern down here in the pit lane with Audi, though.
Yeah, I guess thanks, Camps. That said, they still have, because of the credentials of Garth Tander, they still have to stop for 2 minutes and 1 second times 3. 3 compulsory time pit stops minimum, with a minimum stop time of 121 seconds for at least 5 of the cars. Again, the Hackett and Story car, the Twig and D'Alberto car, the Van Gisbergen and Talbot car, the Shahin and Whincup car, and also the Emery and Tander car. The Ross and Ryan Simpson car gained 6 seconds during the pit stop times 3, so they gained 18 seconds over the course of this race. The way things are at the moment, that'll work very nicely for them, but of course we don't have the pro level drivers in some of these cars yet, so the pace will, you'd expect, start to climb. For Scotty Taylor and Craig Baird, they're stationary for 18 seconds times 3, less than the car that's on screen leading this race. Scotty Taylor at the moment though is 1 minute 30 back from the race lead, a third of the way into this race. Now, the drivers no one driver can do any more than 55% race distance. So you have to take that into the equation. That doesn't quite fit with 3 compulsory pit stops. 3-hour race, you would like to see 2 stops, 1 at the end of 1 hour, 1 at the end of 2 hours. Also, that depends on how much fuel these drivers use, how much fuel the cars use. The Mercedes, we're talking about this at Phillip Island, is a little bit thirstier than cars like the McLaren, and certainly than the Audi or the Lamborghini. So that is something they have to take into consideration. They will do just under an hour in race distance, because that doesn't work into being divisible by 3. So they will plan the pit stops for when they need to. If there's a safety car for any reason, they may decide to come in early and get some of those stops out of the way. Back down to Cameron in pit lane.
Yeah, well, just down with the tyre oven. My timing was terrible. We're about to get it right now. You often see these at the back for GTs. It's something we don't see in a lot of other racing, TCR Australia included, and that's these ovens, tyre ovens, where they actually cook the temperature of the tyres. They can bring them up to temperature and put them on the car. And you'll notice they've got the various different sets through here. They have a heater. It's generally a jet fire that actually fires up in there, heats all these sections. They can bring the tyres and rims up to temperature, put them out onto the cars as well. It's one of the advantages to get in GT racing that you don't get in many other forms of the sport.
Cameron, can you confirm sausage rolls and party pies in there as well, or not?
Actually, I'll have a look.
We'll take a plate each.
Noonan, your lunch is not yet ready. We'll send it up shortly.
Send my afternoon tea up a little later on and cook it with some Pirellis for me.
That was interesting, thanks Cam, to see those, because I was going to bring that up in discussion. It was interesting that during some of the damp running yesterday, the Trofeo Motorsport team, of course, they are partly involved with the Pirelli Motorsport program in Australia, they were heating the tyres to put the car out. Shane Van Gisbergen came in at one stage and said, give me a set that's just off the rack that's not heated. I want to see how they compare. He felt there was little value in it. In fact, he preferred to bring the tyre up to temperature from whatever it was as it was sitting in the garage, as opposed to running the heated tyre. He found that data certainly showed that after a lap they were running at 25 degrees. That's how cool the temperature of the circuit was, the conditions were, the wet weather was. They just really didn't get any benefit out of the warmer tyres. Now it's a little bit different at the moment. It was great to see the sun's back out again, Noons. That's positive.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, it's just disappeared behind a cloud, as I've said that, of course, because we have this level of power. But that is something that the teams have to consider. Is there a benefit in using it? Is there not a benefit in using it? Certainly the Pirelli engineers have been doing a lot of work overtime. Simon Poole, who oversees a lot of the technical side of Pirelli's operations in this part of the world, he was saying that they're learning a lot this weekend just about that tyre. Of course, the Pirelli DHD2 tyre is the control tyre for most of the GT3 competition worldwide. Certainly the Blancpain series in Europe, in Asia, in America, traditionally they all use exactly this tyre. So some good data worldwide, but the conditions here as Fraser Ross goes just a little bit too wide. I think he's probably keen to press on and get past the 63 in front of him. He may be holding station because that's what the team need him to do, not push on too hard. But if you lose your concentration, these things can come unstuck very, very quickly.
Twig's been able just to close the margin, 12 seconds between he in third spot and this car, Peter Hackett in the 63 Mercedes. We talked about Jeff Emery earlier, the reigning champion, car number 1, 26 seconds away from the lead. So he's just chiselled a little bit away since we last looked at that margin to the leader. Scott Taylor's 7th at the moment. He's about 10 seconds away from going down a lap on the road. Here's Yasser Shahin in position 4, 777 car. Jamie Whincup joining him this weekend, and Jamie's been a little under the weather, a bit of a head cold, hasn't quite sounded himself, but he's loving being back in a GT car. He drove this car at Phillip Island in the last round of the GT and Enduro Championship, and of course he did the 12-hour this year with his 888 brothers in Craig Lowndes and Shane Van Gisbergen. And from memory, is it the WM Waste car that was the Vodafone car at the 12-hour this year?
Car.
Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
It was. Yep.
Good timing as it appeared on screen.
Yeah, it's perfectly placed. That's the level of direction that's going on here. As Yasser Shahin fires around, he loves his time in the Mercedes. Of course, he's got a Lamborghini Gallardo REX. He's done a little bit of mileage in that. As we say, he's part of the Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup program over in Asia, so he's doing some miles in Audi. He's off to the Spa 24-hour race in 2 weeks, so these miles will be very, very important. And we quizzed him about why Jamie Whincup this time round, just before Phillip Island. He said, look, I learned something from each of the drivers I drive with. Of course, I've seen a bit of Shane, I've seen a bit of Craig. It was nice to drive with Jamie and just see what I could pick up there. Of course, he took a lot from his time with Luke Youlden as well, and many of us expected him to sign Luke up again this year, but he wanted to do some more. That was an interesting note, just coming from pit lane. The pit stops are imminent, so it'll be interesting to see who runs this. But again, there are 3 compulsory time pit stops. That's a minimum. You can do more than that. Let's hope you don't have to. But you need to get them out of the way somehow, and you need to work on your strategy. When you want to have your pro driver in the car, when you want to have your lesser qualified, perhaps, your semi-pro, we've started calling. Well, there you go, Fraser Ross into pit lane. Fuel, we're not too worried about tyres. We're talking about the durability of the Control Pirelli tyre, because they can't do the tyre stop and the fuel stop at the same time. They'll get this one in the bag. They will be stationary 115 seconds, which is light years. In a lap that they're currently turning at around 1:50, he's going to lose more than a lap. There is Jeff Emery also into pit lane. You can see tyres at the ready. The crew are going to go out and make a tyre change. Stickers, certainly on the front. It looked like he used tyre for the rear. We'll see how that one plays out. The camera goes around, no stickers. So green tyres, right front, left rear, right rear, left front. Got that mixed up. At least they know what they're doing. It's all going to be done in that time period. They cannot, though, cross pit lane any quicker, or the pit exit line, than what they need to. That is all time from in to out. I think there's 30 seconds they're allocated on top of the 121. If they can make it any quicker, so visit back down pit lane for a drive-through. That's not to commit another compulsory stop. That is a penalty.
And you might be wondering, they look a little leisurely. It's because they've got the time. They must be sitting there for a certain pre-described time. So there's no point in rushing and trying to get that tyre on faster or potentially making a mistake. You've got a time window. You may as well use it within reason, not go too far.
Watch the wing, watch the wing.
And now Fraser Ross is ready and waiting for the countdown to be let back into the fast lane. and rejoin the road. Peter Hackett's the leader on the track, approaching a 40-minute mark, 10 seconds clear of Max Twigg. Yasser Shahin third, Liam Talbot fourth. So the Mercs are 1, 2, 3 when we pluck this McLaren out, as now Peter Hackett is on his way to pit lane.
Well, it's interesting too that Twiggy had hauled him in a little bit that last lap round. He picked up about 3 seconds. So whether or not Hackett got caught up somewhere with lap traffic, we'll soon find out. It's interesting strategically what they're planning to do. They may even be worried about the weather map and whether or not there is more rain coming. So if they do it now, they can get one of them out of the way. The next one might be for tyres. So Liam Talbot, well, Yasser Shahin takes over the lead of the race. Liam Talbot now picks up in position 2, 7.6 seconds back from the Ben Motorsport 777 Mercedes. Peter Hackett was shown in third. He'll potentially drop a bit of time, see where Fraser Ross comes out. This is certainly a strategy move because no doubt Fraser Ross was getting a little bit frustrated sitting behind Peter Hackett. This brought him out of sequence and essentially gives him a position, if he can make the most of his outlap, to pick up a position on the man in the number 63. He's clearly getting some instruction from Chris Papadopoulos, calling on the radio, just giving him an update. But that has been a very solid combination. Of course, the 2017 Australian Endurance Champions, Peter Hackett and Dom Story. They were a little bit in the mix last year, but it was Jack Foraker who jumped in alongside Pete for a couple of races. Didn't have the same luck, and they went back to the Hackett-Story combination for this year. And that issue, unfortunately for them at Phillip Island notwithstanding, they've been very, very strong again. As Fraser Ross gets himself up to speed. I'd be surprised if those tyres hadn't been cooked in the oven with your party pies prior to this run.
I'm still waiting for the delivery, by the way.
You've got to talk to Cam about that one. But certainly he will be pushing as hard as he can. He lost that little bit of ground at one stage mid-lap where he just ran wide on one of the corners, and that allowed Hackett to get away. So perhaps that was frustration, and you could see the pace early of that McLaren 720S GT3. Fraser Ross was certainly able to put it about where he wanted to, except alongside and past Peter Hackett. So that's brought him out. Peter Hackett won't be too far away from a release, nor will Fraser Ross be far from the end of the lap, and we'll see how this one plays out. Yasser Shahin now down pit lane.
And some tyre pressure adjustments for the Eggleston Motorsport car. Their times elapsed. Peter Hackett rejoins out to the fast lane as the McLaren, remember with that faster pit stop time that it had of its minimum time, peeling its way off turn 18 as Hackett now rolls down the lane, and this has played out how we expected. That difference in pit stop time sends the McLaren on by as the Merc rolls down pit lane at 40 kilometres per hour. There is the 720 McLaren.
And look at how much ground Max Twigg's made up. That's incredible because it was about 11 or 12 seconds by the time he came into pit lane. Now, either they've left early, which I would be surprised, or the Eggleston Motorsport entries lost a little bit of time on the re-entry. Could have been a very quick dive down pit lane by Max too, so there may have been drama. Let's just see what we get from down in pit lane as Yasser Shahin takes a new set of slicks and gets ready to charge out again.
The familiar face at the front of this car, it's Phil Keed, engineer for Mark Winterbottom in Supercars, who's here this weekend working with Jamie Whincup and Yasser Shahin. So, of course, he works with the Irwin team, Charlie Schwerkolt's team with Mark Winterbottom, but a long-time engineer in Supercars with a long relationship with Fabian Coulthard at Penske and Brad Jones Racing, with Jason Bright at FPR, and a former ProDrive employee with Subaru World Rally Championship before he came into the Supercar Championship. And it's a case now of waiting. They get very good at looking at stopwatches, the car controllers in GT racing. The work's all done. Well, now it's a case of waiting.
You'd only mess it up once before you'd get it in your head that you'd never mess it up again. Talking about Phil, I'm pretty certain I've seen him in Asia a few times alongside Yasser, just helping guide Yasser along. Again, he's very serious about his motorsport. You'd have to be serious to build a facility like the Ben Motorsport Park, but takes his driving very, very seriously. He often drives with a driver coach. Wherever he is, he takes an engineer with him. He's been using Paul Sepranich a little bit of late over in Asia as Liam Talbot comes in for a compulsory timed pit stop. And the 129 entry, that will be stopped for 121 seconds. Of course, Shane van Gisbergen part of that team. And great to see Liam enjoying his motor racing and back in Australian GT after a stellar run last year alongside John Martin in the Walkinshaw Porsche GT3R. New tyres going on. Scotty Taylor also down pit lane. So it looks very much like they're going to try and commit as much of the race mileage to the AMs before they put the pros in behind the wheel. A few of them tried this last time. There was a bit of a mix of the pros and the AMs. Dom Story started the 63 entry that was working quite well for them. Remember, Cameron McConville started Adrian Dietz's entry. So the few of the pros at Phillip Island did elect to start. That was a strategy play to see if things would be different, but nobody would quite predicted that 11 minutes in we'd be under red flag for 30 minutes, stationary on the main straight with the clock still ticking. So that did have an impact. The gorgeous lines of the Lamborghini Huracan GT3, 5.2 litre, naturally aspirated V10. A lot of similarities between the Audi V10 and this one, of course, both from the Volkswagen family group. To a fair share of parts, but do perform very, very differently. Shane Van Gisbergen enjoying his laps the other day. Some of the onboard footage we put onto social media went off tap. Just him sliding the car around just a couple of laps in, and he's got 600 horsepower under his right foot. And that was pretty much how he was steering the car. A lot of very, very fine movements of the steering wheel. A lot of opposite lock. You can see him on left of screen taking some pictures. Loves his time in GT cars.
He's incognito with that hoodie on, and the beard and the cap as well. Is he trying to stay away from the camera?
Oh, there is a little bit of that. He's very much a true race fan. Looks like a little bit of damage to the front right of the 222 car, so hopefully that doesn't cause him any drama. And here comes the 59 down to Cameron in the lane.
Yeah, just an update, guys. Justin McMillan came into the pit lane. A couple of people were in his way, and he's parked too far away from the fuel stop. They couldn't get the fuel nozzle all the way over to the car, so that's really cost the Glenwood Justin McMillan KTM Crossbow.
Glad you brought that one up, Cameron. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago at Highlands Motorsport Park, there was an instance where the car didn't meet the fuel rig, and the team actually tried to make an adjustment with sheer grunt to fix that. Started a monstrous fire in the back of his Lamborghini. It was iconic imagery of this huge wall of flame. You don't want to see those sorts of things. They've learned a lot from that, so I'm not surprised that they've readjusted the car. Again, as you said, we've got plenty of time to get these things right. No need to rush anything. That's part of the safety of the sport. It's a long stop, yes, but there is plenty of time. It's a long stop for just about every car in the field. So that just evens things up by the time you have committed the stops. And by being compulsory stops, and there being 3 of them, nobody can really make up any advantage by stopping shorter or running longer. You have to stop for safety reasons at least 3 times. And of course, they need refueling.
And all our championship class cars have been to pit lane. So it washes out from that first pit stop with Fraser Ross in the lead. The McLaren 13.3 seconds clear of Peter Hackett's Mercedes. Twig next from Shannons. So the Mercedes are 2-3-4. Liam Talbot's Lamborghini P5. Jeff Emery P6. And Scott Taylor 7th is just on the lead lap by about 5 seconds at the moment. The McLaren turning its way onto pit straight, and that is the Merc, the 222 car that Scott shares with Craig Baird just in front. To keep them in the game, they've got to keep that car on the lead lap, because if they get a safety car, they suddenly work their way back to the tail of the chain. That time around, Fraser Ross, new fastest lap of the race, 1:47.33, extending that margin back to Peter Hackett. And we have gone 47 minutes, approaching 1/3 race distance in this second round of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. Here's the car second. Peter Hackett's 14 seconds down the road. There's Max Twig in the green Mercedes in the background, trying to work his way through the Lamborghini, the trophy class car of Richard Gartner. He's sharing with Hadrian Morel this weekend, the only trophy class car in the field. They run 8th overall.
Talking lap records, Fraser Ross has just set a new lap record for GT3 cars around the Bend Motorsport Park last year. Dave Reynolds, 1:47.6978 in the Aussie Driver's Search Mercedes AMG. So the mighty Mercs are keeping that alive. Ooh, Peter Hackett now, he is absolutely under fire. This is not what they really wanted to see, but he's making, well, certainly Fraser Ross is making up a lot of ground, but so too Max Twig. So whether or not Pete's got any kind of issue, we'll see what his lap times are like at the moment. Hasn't improved on that early pace that he set. Lap 13 was his quickest. He was first into the 1:48.3. Sorry, the low 1:48. The others have since caught up, and Fraser Ross now, well, he's improved that mark by a second to be the quickest man on track, and that leads out to 17.4 seconds. It was nothing like that as Pete Hackett came out of pit lane after his compulsory stop. But now he's got fresh air in front of him. Fraser Ross is pushing and pushing hard. Again, they make up 18 seconds just in the pit stops alone on the 63 car. So this is falling very, very nicely into the hands of the 59 racing team.
And you might be wondering why all these times, why the rankings, why the different pit stop times. Aim of the game is to equalise the field from the drivers with their different backgrounds. There are guys who are, they're not professional, they're semi-pro. They do this a bit, but it's not their full-time profession. They're not trying to make a career of race driving. Then you've got guys like Whincup and Van Gisbergen who are highly paid, highly experienced, highly talented professional drivers. So it's always a really tricky mix to try to get the numbers right in the calculations, because safety cars and other things throw them out of whack. But it's the norm of GT racing around the world to equalise as much as possible, to give every opportunity to everybody, no matter who they are, what their ranking is, to have the chance of a great result. And that's the system that's employed around the world, and that's what we do here with Australian GT as well. Why is it, though, that everyone's gone for the Merc? I know it's a great all-round car, but surely someone can just be a little bit different, can't they? Why follow the pack?
The beauty of GT3 racing is it's built, and its success has been built around gentleman drivers. So guys who have come into the sport potentially later in life that want to race a premium brand car, a supercar, a sports car, and to do it and be comfortable in the car. So sometimes there's a compromise in the way they're set up. It's about drivability and how comfortable the drivers are in these cars. They're not going to push them to 10 tenths or an 11 tenths like a Shane Van Gisbergen or a Jamie Whincup. They want to be comfortable racing fast. They don't want to have a 10-second void between a Yasser Shahin and a Jamie Whincup, or a Liam Talbot and a Shane Van Gisbergen. They want that gap to be close. It's interesting to see how close D'Alberto and Max Twigg are, but it's about that level of competition. So for the drivers, you talk to a lot of them, they're just more comfortable at the moment in the Mercedes AMG. It used to be the Audi was the car that they were most comfortable in. The Mercedes is the current car. Things change, and the teams, the factories are also aware of that, and they adapt the cars to suit us. Max Twigg goes down the inside and takes position 2 away from Peter Hackett. Sounds like we've got Cam down in pit lane with an update.
Just been following up on the 63 of Peter Hackett for you, and the update there was they kept him on the same set of tyres. They said they're overall happy with his pace, but he's not as quick as they've double stinted him on these tyres.
Yeah, they made a pressure adjustment at the stop. We saw that before with the Eagleston Motorsport team just plugging the pyro in and dropping down as much as they could. Actron there, nice authoritative dive from Max Twigg, and Peter's been around, he knows the deal. No point in fighting for that one right there and then, because Max was on his way through. So margin to the lead for Twigg is 18.7 seconds to Fraser Ross. Speak of the McLaren, and it arrives on your screen. Approaching the 1 hour mark of this 3-hour Australian Endurance Championship race.
That weather looks like it's closing in again. You notice it's just different parts of the circuit's gotten darker. So we'll see how this one plays out. Still a long way to go, as you say rightly, 2 hours. Go back to the tyre bank that they have for this weekend. They've got 4 sets. They've effectively got 4 stints during this race, because there's 3 compulsory pit stops. There it is, a lot of blue sky, a lot of dark clouds too. 3 compulsory stops, which means you need to break this race into 4 parts. You can't have new tyres for every one of those stints, because you've used 1, maybe 2 sets during the qualifying periods, the 2 20-minute qualifying sessions. What's interesting about that, of course, though, is it was raining. So they use the wet weather tyres for those. They effectively do have a good bank of dry rubber. It's how you manage those tyres. That's the thing. And if they're happy with the wear on the tyre and the rate of the car, they may elect, like Peter Hackett's team, to leave him out there on those tyres. Although at the moment, with the pace dropping off, Peter Hackett last time round, a 150. Talk about Max Twigg's done a 148.5. So he gained 1.7 seconds that last time round. Fraser Ross still punching out some pretty quick laps in the 148s. There is Liam Talbot just getting around the trophy class rated car, which is the older generation cars. That is Richard Gartner and Hadrian Roll. Richard Gartner behind the wheel. It's a Lamborghini Gallardo REX GT3. Very quick car, but that was the car built under contract by Ryder Engineering. The car on screen is built by Lamborghini Squadra Corsa, the performance and motorsport arm of the factory. So they are customer racing teams, and Trofeo Motorsport are the customer representative of Lamborghini. Now, what did I see going slowly over the back? It may have just been a long shot with a different part of the circuit. It looked to me like a McLaren, so hopefully no dramas there. That just in the background of the shot threw me out a little bit there, so hopefully no dramas for Fraser Ross.
Liam Talbot set this car's fastest lap of the race last time around. He sits in position 5, 33 seconds away from the lead, 10 seconds behind Yasser Shane van Gisbergen will step into this car a little later on. And earlier in the weekend, Greg Rust took a closer look at the 129 Lamborghini.
The web profile for the Lamborghini Huracan describes it as sculpted and sensual, based on the spiky hexagonal forms of the carbon atom. That's heady stuff from the marketing department over a long lunch, no doubt. But when you stand back and look at the racing version, it is absolutely gorgeous. This car, of course, has its origins, its heart in Italy from the Squadra Corsa customer racing operation. Lots of success at places like the Daytona 24-hour, the Blancpain Series in Europe, and this particular one here in Australia, run by Trofeo Motorsport, has been in the top 10 at Bathurst in the 12-hour, not once, but twice. Run this weekend by Shane van Gisbergen and Liam Talbot, powered by a V10 engine with lots of lineage that comes back to the VW group, lots of similarities to the Audi in this car. No change from €400,000, aero everywhere you look, and a couple of important changes this year too, particularly in the areas of cooling. In the past, it was housed on the front corners of the car. Now it's more central and set back. So in the heat of combat, you're less likely to damage the car and end up bowing out of the race. It is unmistakably Lamborghini. Left-hand drive, built, ready for racing.
Are you a motoring enthusiast? Shannons are giving you the chance to win a trip to the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indy 500. Kick off in New York, then drive from Chicago to the Indianapolis 500 and Nashville in a Lincoln Continental. Visit some of America's unique automotive museums and collections, with up to $5,000 spending money for eligible Shannons Club members. Plus, win a new Indian Scout motorcycle. To enter, get a quote on your special car, spouse's car, daily drive, your bike or home. Take out a new policy for even more chances of winning. Call Shannons on 134646 or go online today.
Safer vehicle choices save lives. Find out who survives.
Success looks like this. Hard work looks like this. Determination, yeah, we got that. Skills, got those too. We're right where we belong. Right where we belong. And we aren't going anywhere. Life feels good in the fast lane. Forget the boundaries, forget the rules. Be different. Be different. Be different. Be different. See our stories at daretobedifferent.com.
What's my podcast about? It's for people that love a good driving yarn. This connection between the owners and the machine. That's Rusty's Garage, and it's free on Podcast One.
Podcast One.
Every day, 3,500 lives are lost on roads around the world. Driving can be dangerous, but there are simple rules we can follow that will make our roads safer and save lives. Slow down for kids. Don't text and drive. Always pay attention. Obey the speed limits. Stop when you're tired. Never drink and drive. Check your tires. Rules keep us alive.
Your life is in your hands. Respect the rules.
Back at the Ben Motorsport Park, and we have the 222 Mercedes-Benz. The Scott Taylor car is parked, and it is way away from the circuit. That is Scott with his helmet off. I think he's in the next suburb. He's that far off the track, Sean Henshaw. Aaron Noonan with you for this live streaming coverage from the Shannons Nationals, round 2 of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. And it's Fraser Ross in this McLaren that leads the race by 10.8 seconds back to Max Twigg. But that 222 Mercedes looks a long way off the circuit, and no sign at the moment of any caution yellow flags.
Certainly a different postcode. That's well away from trouble, which is one good thing. It'll be interesting to see what's happened there, whether he's got caught off the circuit and unable to rejoin because the outfield is so damp and slippery, and whether there has been some sort of technical issue. No doubt Cam and the team down there will be able to find out more about that from the Scott Taylor Motorsport team. Of course, they run 3 of the Mercedes AMGs here this weekend. Number 8 entry, Max Twigg, the 777 car on screen of Yasser Shahin, who's in position 4 and churning out some pretty stout laps at the moment. He's down in the 1:47.6s, also under the standing lap record of Dave Reynolds from last year. He'll be very happy with that, to be on the pace of somebody like Dave Reynolds. Of course, the car is well set, well tuned by the STM team, so that has also been aided by the addition of Jamie Whincup this year to that car. So be interesting to see what has played out for Scotty Taylor. He was doing a great job. In fact, Scotty's best lap was shown as a 1:50.3, 3 seconds off the pace. So some more activity going on as we slip into the second hour of round 2 of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship.
Replay here in the pit lane. This is the KTM of Justin McMillan, lowered from a pit stop, but not all the way. And lifted, oh, they left one of the incompressible jacks in underneath.
There may have been a couple of dramas there. It doesn't look like it's affected their stop too much. So 1 pit stop. Hopefully that isn't their second compulsory pit stop. Justin McMillan is leading at the moment in the GT4 category in that blue entry. Going another lap down to race leader Fraser Ross, who's out by 10.6 seconds now over Max Twigg. Peter Hackett 3 seconds back and under fire from Yasser Shahin, who's looking to try and make up as much ground as possible. Liam Talbot another 10 seconds back in position number 5, and Jeff Emery still 35 seconds down on the race leaders. And I'm not so sure that that's all scheduled, because 35 seconds is a long time to make up when you are stopping for an equivalent amount of time as most of those drivers immediately ahead of you on track. There is the number 1 and the number 2. Fraser Ross turning into turn 1. Max Twigg crossing the line to start his 33rd lap. You can see that battle behind for position number 3. Peter Hackett, who led the opening laps of this race up to the first compulsory stop, holding Yasser Shahin at bay. Which is interesting to see what Jamie Whincup will be able to do in the 777 this time around. Head cold aside, he was very quick during unofficial practice and testing. You have had approved testing sessions. Phillip Island, we saw it, also here this weekend at the Ben Motorsport Park on Thursday, dry conditions. And despite the fact that the standing lap record was Dave Reynolds with a 1:47.69, Jamie Whincup was able to get down to the low 1:46s. That is the tail end of what happened with Scotty Taylor. It looked like a little bit of smoke to the right rear of the car. That's unusual. Something may have failed in the right rear. We'll soon find that out. The Pirelli team down there working hard. Of course, the wet weather tyres was not on the schedule when we came into the weekend, but certainly they can use as many sets of those as they would like. A lot of teams obviously changing rims across to fit slicks again, so that's a positive sign. I can't see a weather map just yet, but outside still plenty of blue sky. Let's hope it stays that way as we go through to the twilight, and I'm sure cars finishing with headlights ablaze. Not unusual, because we start the Bathurst 12 hour that way every year. These cars do spend a lot of time in the dark. There is the Control Pirelli DHD2 slick going on. The Control Pirelli WH wet coming off. Peter Hackett still turning around. Got to work out what 45% of 180 is. What's your math like?
Well, half of 180 is 90.
Okay. Come on, see if you can work it out. I should be able to, but I'm not going to.
So we're looking for, what are we looking for? 45. So 3/4 therefore of 90 is...
do you want me to put you out of your misery? 81 laps. 81 laps. That's the mark we're looking for. So at the moment, 33 laps in the books, 34 laps now underway. So we're not quite halfway for these drivers to go. So they will be trying to get as much time out of the car as possible. And once they get to 81 laps, it's assuming where we are now, 81 minutes rather, sorry. Let's not say 81 laps, 81 minutes. I messed that one up. I got too excited in doing the math. So that is not too far away, to be perfectly honest. We are 64 minutes into this, so another 17 minutes, and a lot of these drivers can step out and just let their co-drivers go at it.
I'm looking forward to seeing Whincup. I think it's great that he's doing some of this GT racing. He's always been really reluctant to step outside of that supercars realm where he's put so much energy and so much focus mentally to win 7 championships and 4 Bathursts. He's always put his eggs in the supercars basket, but in more recent years we've seen him be able to do some different events. He did the Race of Champions. He's done a bit of GT racing. It's great to see. I think it's great when we get back to the way it used to be with drivers who drive anything and everything. That's what I love about Van Gisbergen. He's the modern guy, like a Jim Richards, who just anything and everything. If we had truck racing going still at a high level, he'd be having a crack at that as well, which JR did. Dick Johnson did it as well. You know, guys like Alan Grice, they went and drove all sorts of cars on any given weekend. If they had a free spot in the diary, they were up for a race. And Van Gisbergen's that guy, and it's great to see Whincup doing a bit more stuff. He'll get into this car pretty soon, 777. Not sure if he's channeling to remind us that he's a 7-time supercar champ with 777 on that car. I tell you what, one of his cars is here in the museum at the visitor centre. If you come to the Ben Motorsport Park, he's a Vodafone Commodore that he won Bathurst in 2012, and he won a record 28 races in across 2 years, 2-time championship winning car. It's sitting in the foyer here downstairs, so it's a little strange for him to come to a racetrack to go racing and see one of his old cars right here in the pit lane in the visitor centre.
Well, that was a great segue into what I was about to say about Peter Hackett. I think it was 2005. He still, I believe, I've got to check some of the most recent updates, but he holds the record for most number of GT wins in a year, and I think it was 10 wins.
I reckon
that
you're
was a
right.
pretty big season. I'm sure it was 2005. He finished second in the championship.
Let me go digging. Let me go digging.
You go digging.
Start your stopwatch now, and I'll see how
You
long
are
it
the
takes.
sleuth. You see what you can find out. But I'm going off memory, and I'm not getting any younger, so that could well be a little rusty. And certainly Peter Hackett still is pushing on. He's doing a sterling job. He's holding Yasser Shahin at bay. Yasser Shahin probably done more miles around here than most of his rivals in this field, despite the fact that he is very much the symbol of a gentleman driver, a businessman driver. He drives a desk very well most days. That is his major focus. He enjoys his motorsport, but it comes very second to both business and family, or family and business. And his gardening, as it turns out, we discovered during an interview in Asia. Cameron is down in pit lane. He's with Jamie Whincup, who we were just talking about.
You've been talking about him so much, Loons. I thought I'd better go and grab the guy as well. Jamie Whincup, mate. GT racing. I know you've had a bit of experience in it. Loons is saying that
you're letting it creep more into your life at the moment. Is that something you're actually really focusing on, getting a bit of variety in your racing?
I'm not sure if I'm focusing on it, but you're right. I have absolutely all eggs in my basket, really. Put everything into a supercar. There's plenty of so much motorsport out there than just supercar. No doubt that'll be my focus for the next couple of years at least, but it's great to put my toe in the water with Aussie GT. I enjoyed Phillip Island until I had my third wheel fall off in 9 months. That wasn't fun, but I'm actually really enjoying watching Yasser do his thing this week. He's really aware of his capabilities, but at the same time he's doing an unbelievable job. You know, he did really quick. He knows his track like the back of his hand, and classic watching him off the start there, big lunge down the outside, a bit of contact, and he's doing a really good job. So a little bit of pressure on me to make sure I round off the day as strong as we can. Well, I'll let you go and get ready. Thanks, JW. Thanks, mate. Cheers. No worries.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's the unofficial Red Bull Cup going between he, Tander and Van Gisbergen, but I tell you what, there'll be some bragging rights on the line at the end of this one. At the moment, Jamie's P4, the Lambo that Shane will get in is P6, and the Audi that Garth will get in is P5. So hopefully we'll see a compression later on in the field with maybe a safety car or some pit stop times to put them all on the road together. That will be a really good run home. This is the car that leads the race. Fraser Ross, McLaren, what is he, 11 seconds in the lead back to Max Twigg. Hackett sits third, and Yasser Shahin, who we spoke about before, sits in P4. Let's head back to the lane with Emma.
Shane Van Gisbergen, sorry, we were just watching on together. Did you see what happened?
No. I think we just
a bit of a spin.
We lost 30 seconds or something and just spun out, but it was going really good till then, so hopefully back in a rhythm can try and catch up a bit.
How is it driving the Lambo, that beautiful car, around a beautiful track like this?
Yeah, it's a bit like driving the McLaren. I've driven the Mercedes lately, a bit spoiled really, but yeah, it's a pretty cool, awesome car, cool to be here, but yeah, we need a safety car, hopefully we can catch back up.
How much does GT mean to you? I mean, you've had plenty of experience in this category before.
Oh, it's just racing cars. It's fun. Awesome to be here, and thanks to the team for having me. But yeah, getting to drive cars like this is pretty cool.
Thanks, Geese. Good luck.
Cheers.
Yeah, good to have him here. Shane Van Gisbergen has done plenty of GT racing, not just in Australia, but overseas in the States at the Rolex 24 as well. And he's got a resume that he's been building as a nice and varied resume of all sorts of racing, whether it's GT cars or supercars, which is the day job, but he's a crack at just about everything over the years so far. And I reckon we'll see him in some weird and wonderful stuff later in his career too, when he's got even more time on his hands and he wants to go racing more often. I think he's even a remote control racing car sort of a guy too. Even if he hasn't got a real one to drive, he'll drive a little one as well.
The Bend Motorsport Park team were telling me he's here for a drift competition, not too distant
He's
future.
done plenty of that as well.
He's going to do that. Last time I saw him was about 2 weeks ago at Suzuka in Japan, sitting on the grid in the Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia in a Mercedes AMG, run not strangely by the 888 racing operation. So he's getting plenty of miles all over the place, and he just loves being in a race car. He's very incognito, as you pointed out. He doesn't really want to make a big fuss of things. He's happy to just stand in the corner of the garage, talk to the engineers, talk to the boys. How can I get the most out of this? And just put me in the car.
Yeah, the media stuff's not naturally Shane's game. He likes doing the race car driving stuff. I get it, totally understand. But he's come out of his shell a lot in the latter years. He's been around the supercars now for the best part of a decade. He turned up as a 17-year-old kid from New Zealand at Oran Park in 07 in that Stone Brothers run Team Kiwi Falcon, and then of course the champ of supercars a couple of years ago to 888, and he's flying the flag for Holden this year in what is a pretty tough year up against the Mustangs. But he's a Lambo man today, and they're still on the lead lap. They're still in the game, he and Liam Talbot. There's no problem there. We've gone 1 hour 10 in this race, and positions 2, 3, 4. These cars are all together on the road. They were all together on the first lap at the first corner as well, all having a bit of a rub and a touch. They got away with it, and now they're fighting on the road for outright 2, 3, 4. And if you have a look through the driver's window, look in the windscreen, you'll see those LED panels with the different positions that they're running, and that's a great addition in this series. And they double up at the pit stops to show you the pit stop time as it counts during the stop as well. So it's great for the fans watching on our live stream coverage and also here at the track.
How did you go with that data? But before you get to that, I was just going to make one quick shout out. There's a lot of people watching on. One of them, Barry Ryan, of course, another one heavily involved in supercars these days, now a part team owner.
A part rec holder, yes.
And a man who's been a very big part of Australian GT in the past, of course, with the Erebus Motorsport operation. Seen a lot of Peter Hackett. He's watching on this. There's a number of people. Josh Burden, who's racing now a lot overseas as part of the KCMG operation, racing alongside some very big names in a Nissan GT3. Of course, Matt Solomon, who's been a part of Australian GT in the past, the young man from Hong Kong, Rio Nagara, who should be on the grid here. Dom Story's watching. What are you doing, Dom? Hoping you're getting ready. Greg Taylor, another former. Dean Lilly, who was part of the team that won Class B at the Bathurst 12 Hour for M Motorsport. So a lot of people watching. I'm going to make one shout out to a man who's here. Paul Lister is somewhere in the crowd watching this for a hallmark birthday. So he flew in especially to be here this weekend to see Australian GT. So Paul, I hope you're enjoying the race, and to anyone out here watching, it's great to have the opportunity to live stream this around the country, around the world, and certainly a lot of people watching this competition, because it really has been a big part of the landscape in Australia for many years, and they're watching on as the Mercedes AMG performance driving team continue to circulate nose to tail. Peter Hackett knows all about that. He's been a performance driving instructor for AMG for what, 12 years, 13 years? It's been a very long time. How did you go with the spec?
I went good. When we were talking about Peter Hackett earlier, most race wins in a season in Australian GT. That was the question, was it not?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, 2005 in the Lamborghini Diablo GTR, as you might remember, that he drove in that first year of the reborn GT Championship. 10 race wins that year. There were 5 rounds. There were a total of 16 races, and he won 10 of them, and I reckon that's still the mark that no one's been able to beat. Bryce Washington did some winning in a Porsche, Darcy Russell in a Viper, Greg Crick, who's here this weekend, in a Viper as well, and our late great friend Alan Simonson, who started the next year with a Ferrari 360 GT, but it was really DeLambo that did the job that year, and I reckon that's a pretty tough record to beat. 10 race wins in a season is pretty impressive no matter what it is.
It was impressive back then. Of course, Pete had stepped out of F3 where he's a front runner, former champion, and he was really the young star. He's still a young star. The teeth are a lot wider than they were back then, and he's still punching out some very good laps. And talking to Dom Story and even to Chris Papadopoulos earlier in the weekend, said Pete's really found something this year. He stepped up. They were really frustrated by what happened at Phillip Island. There was nothing they could do about that, but they were able to just put that aside and come back this weekend, and they're right in the mix. Here they are running around in position number 3 and still in a position to bag a good haul of points. Of course, we've got one more round in the Endurance Championship. That's at Sandown in Melbourne in the not too distant future, as Liam Talbot recovers from that spin. It's unfortunate. Well, it's the curse, the media curse perhaps. We cross down to SVG and the first thing he sees is a spin by the 129 Lamborghini, and he really hasn't put a foot wrong, Liam Talbot, so far this weekend. He's been quick. He got to within a bit more than a second of Shane van Gisbergen at one stage during practice, but of course SVG hadn't done an awful lot of laps at that stage and hadn't really applied the pressure, but Liam is doing a sterling job, currently running around 147.85, so he's only half a second off the fastest lap of the race. He's really enjoying his time behind the wheel of the Huracan.
48 seconds away from the lead of the motor race, which is still Fraser Ross. Hour 45 left on the clock in this 3-hour Australian Endurance Championship race.
6 minutes to go.
Yep. Countdown's on before we start to see some of the heavy hitters step into these cars. Wouldn't mind betting there's a few who might have to get the sunnies out for that sun where it's pointing in a difficult direction this later stage of the afternoon as it starts to fall. Fraser Ross leads 11 seconds back to Max Twigg. The Mercedes-AMG Performance Driving Squad 2, 3, 4, they've been locked together, those cars, virtually all race. Jeff Emery's 5th. He's 38 seconds off the lead in the Audi that he shares. So let's just stop and have a bit of a picture here, Sean, at who's going to step in to these cars for the run home. Fraser Ross gives the McLaren to Ryan Simpson. Not heaps of experience in GT racing and in this car, but lots of experience in lots of forms of motor racing. Max Twigg gives it to Tony D'Alberto. His resume says enough. Podium finisher at Bathurst, go-to guy for Penske in the endurance races, doing a lot this year between the Merc and the Honda TCR car. Pete Hackett gives it to Dom Story when he stops watching the live stream on Facebook, that is. Dom Story's done Super 2, he's done open wheelers, he's done GT racing, really established Melbourne-based Kiwi who's done a lot of good racing. Jamie Whincup speaks for himself. Garth Tander speaks for himself. Shane van Gisbergen, we kind of know him as well. There are the drivers who are going to step into these cars for the run home, and we rattled off the list, and when you say things happen in the lane. Cameron must be listening. You're with one of those drivers.
Yeah, I certainly did get Garth Tander. We've spoken to everyone else. He's just getting ready, about to get in the car. You've had one win today. What are the chances of making it 2?
I don't know. The Mercs and the McLaren look pretty strong. So Shane and I have just been texting each other. He said I have to wait for him. We're 10 seconds up the road from him, but that's unlikely. So, yeah, look, we'll do what we can. It looks like the Mercs and McLaren are strong. It's important just to make sure we get a good, solid result for Jeff's championship. So we'll go as fast as we can and see what happens.
Good luck, Garth.
Cheers. And we're not waiting, Shane.
We'll pass that message on in case he's not looking at his phone anymore as Garth Tander gets ready to step into the number 1 Valvoline Audi. Here's Liam Talbot in that 129 Lamborghini, the Trofeo Motorsport team car.
If we go into championship standings the way they are at the moment, Max Twigg led into Phillip Island. He was the championship points leader. He is the reigning champion of the Endurance Championship. He dropped to second in the championship points, 52 points back from Jeff Emery, 62 points. There's my math gone straight out the window without a calculator. 62 points back from Jeff Emery coming into this round. Now, the difference between first and third to finish this race is 70 points. Currently, Jeff Emery and Garth Tander are in position number 5. So there's another big drop in points. They will lose a fair bit of ground in this instance to Max Twigg and Tony D'Alberto, certainly in both the Endurance Championship, but for for Jeff Emery in the outright championship. So the number 1 car needs to try and pick something up here. They haven't moved forward. We picked this up probably 45 minutes into the race. They were about 35 seconds back, 30 seconds thereabouts at that stage. They're now 39 seconds down on the race lead. So whether all is not well with the number 1 car, or whether there is some other level of strategy play that's coming into the equation. They are an experienced team. Audi, remember, have won a lot of races. Jeff is a 2-time Australian GT champion. He's the reigning Australian GT champion. They know how to put a championship together. In fact, Fraser Ross was giving him a ribbing the other day saying, "Where are you, old man? What is it with you?" And he said, "I don't know what it is with you young blokes. You keep falling over yourselves. I'm not driving particularly quickly. I don't have anything magic going on. Garth's okay. I just go round. But you guys keep all falling over." You have to put a championship together. And one thing Max Twig's been saying, well, all season with the Endurance Championship is consistency rules. Consistency. Finish on the podium, try and get a win, and you might find yourself at the top of the championship table at the end of the year. And at the moment, they're doing very well. Second this time. They were third last time out at Phillip Island. But again, we still have, well, 100-odd minutes left in this race.
Here's the 777 car that still sits fourth. These Mercs, we can fit them in a camera shot on our live streaming coverage of the Shannons Nationals. And it's time to get ready. It's time to bolt up. It's time to get the helmet on. Ryan Simpson's getting prepared to step aboard the McLaren, which leads the way by 14 seconds at the moment, with Fraser Ross at the helm. Car number 59. Here's the car that's third, Peter Hackett, sharing with Dom Story, with Eggleston Motorsport again prepping and running this car from their base in Melbourne, where they run their Super 2 program from. So last weekend up in Townsville, back home to home base, and now across to Adelaide this weekend to come here to the Ben Motorsport Park. And in comes Yasser Shahin. 777 is in with 1 hour and 40 on the clock. Jamie Whincup will be standing by to climb aboard.
That's pretty close for Yasser. Gee.
It's running at fine.
It is running at fine. I would have said it was 139 would have been the cutoff. That's 45%. But anyway, the team have obviously worked that out. Maybe they'll leave him sitting in the car until it clicks over. They've got plenty of time in pit lane. Remember, 2 minutes and 1 second stationary in pit lane. So they have that to take into account. The teams may have worked that one out, and they are willing to roll the dice on that front. We're 40 seconds off, 81 minutes down in this race. As Peter Hackett continues to fire around behind Max Twiggy. He hasn't lost any ground. He lost a little bit after the pit stop. Twiggy was through on him pretty quickly, but then he's managed to maintain that gap over the closing laps. They've dropped back to about 12 to 13 seconds behind the 59 McLaren after the pit stop. But over the course of the last 40-odd minutes, that's managed to stabilise, and they're only just under 15 seconds off the race lead. Fraser Ross ready to hand over to Ryan Simpson, and not only has Ryan got to deal with all of this and some pretty stellar rivals, 100 minutes behind the wheel. He's got 2 compulsory pit stops to work through. Well, 1 more effectively after the stop when they jump in, but 100 minutes behind the wheel. That's going to be a big call.
Van Gisbergen, suited, booted, helmeted, ready to go to step into the Lamborghini, and to his left is Steve Toddkill. They call him Killer in his time in supercars racing. He was engineer for Michael Caruso for quite a few years at the Kelly Nissan team. Departed there at the end of last year, has been doing a bit of engineering work in GT racing. So it's always interesting when you see guys who've been rivals in different teams for so many years, and then they all end up in the same garages when they come and do GT racing. The likes of Phil Keat engineering here with Yasser Shahin and Jamie Whincup here this weekend really makes for a great mix. Here's Peter Hackett into the pit lane. Dom Story to take over the 63 car. Steering wheel off to allow for that extra bit of room to get in and out the AMG. Refueling occurring in the background, and the crew will be ready and waiting to go to work. Team co-owner Ben Eggleston there to the right with the air spike. In it goes to bring that car off the deck.
Maximum 4 people across the line if the rules stand as per what they run in Europe and in Asia. So 2 rattle guns. That's why they only do 2 sets of tyres, or 2 tyres each stop. You go around the other side, make the change. Another set of stickers. That wet weather in qualifying aided the opportunity to put fresh rubber on each time. Interestingly, they didn't do it last time, did they? During the stop, they just adjusted pressures.
Let them down.
And Pete's time in that second leg wasn't able to match his rivals. But certainly he's done a great job and put them right back into this equation. And that's all he needed to do. Dom Story will have a little bit more pressure. He's the one that needs to push harder. Pete was saying that the team calculate that he can be up to a second lap faster. But even Dom was saying that this weekend Pete's found that little bit extra and managed to close that gap up. And that's what you want in a Pro-Am style combination. Your second driver or your semi-pro driver to be very, very close. The number 8 car is in. And that looked like the race-leading McLaren just coming in left of screen, just in the top corner as we panned wide. So that'll be Fraser Ross in to hand over to Ryan Simpson. So Tony D'Alberto likely behind the wheel of the number 8. So the 59, the 8 and the 63 in pit lane. That leaves Jeff Emery as the race leader. There is Fraser Ross. Just jumped out of the car. He's done his job and hands over now to Ryan Simpson. Interesting to see how he goes. Of course, Ryan Simpson was the top qualifier at Phillip Island, out-qualified Jamie Whincup. So this guy has some serious pace. He doesn't have a lot of experience in these cars. Started the season in the sprint rounds with McLaren 570 SGT4 to get himself prepped for this style of competition. Of course, the performance of that car is a lot lower than the 720 SGT3, but he adapted very, very well at Phillip Island and was one of the star performers in that mid part of the race. There's a flurry of activity coming out of pit lane. Tony D'Alberto leads Dom Story, and I'm pretty sure Dom Story won't want to see that happen. The two of them went over to the kart circuit a couple of days ago and went head-to-head. Tony D'Alberto had to cut out half the circuit with a cut-through at one stage to get ahead of Dom because Dom wasn't letting anybody past. And I think that might translate this time round too. Keep a close eye on the 63. He'll be looking to try and take the fight to Tony D'Alberto.
And those Mercs are all on the road together with about 3 or 4 seconds between them, because in the background of the shot here on the live stream coverage, Jamie Whincup is in 777. He's at the back of the queue just behind these two with Tony D'Alberto in car 8, Dom Story in 63. There's Whincup in 777 as Ryan Simpson waits and watches for the time to run down before they let the McLaren back onto the track. We are just about at the halfway distance point. 1 hour 25 gone. Pressure's coming here onto Tony D'Alberto. Dom Story closing in. Whincup's grabbed the margin. He's right with them now.
Wow.
Liam Talbot's the leader on the road, but that Lamborghini needs to go to pit lane soon for Shane van Gisbergen to take the wheel. The pressure's on here. D'Alberto has got Story all over the back of him. Whincup's waiting for them to make a mistake and open a door. And as they're turning their way up to the pit straight, and they're, whoa, close. Whincup has a look. They're firing their back away around through the kink of the sweeper to get to turn 16 and then up to 17. The final turn at 18. The McLaren was on its way down the pit lane to resume with Ryan Simpson. Comfortably clear. That pit stop time really good for the McLaren. And letting it back out onto the road in front of these Mercedes-Benz. Now the question will be, where does Garth Tander come out in the mix? In the Audi, the Jeff Emery number 1 car is in the lane at the moment. But this is the car that it says second at the moment, but it will lead because the Lamborghini that's out front with Liam Talbot will have to come to the lane very soon for its second stop. In fact, it's in there now.
There is Shane van Gisbergen about to get Liam Talbot out of the car. The number 50 Vantage Freight, Vantage Racing entry of David Crampton has done enough. He's out. He'll hand over to Trent Harrison and Justin McMillan if he hasn't already. Oh, D'Alberto's gone wide. That's opened the door too wide. And Dom Story's been taken in all of that process by Jamie Whincup. I was about to say, I don't think Dom Story's going to hang around too long. He wants to make an impression. He's got 2 guys who have been at the top of their game. Jamie Whincup, a 7-time Supercars champion. That wasn't an option that was open to Dom Story in the end. So against that competition, he'll want to prove his mettle as one of the best GT drivers in this part of the world. So he'll want to take the fight to both D'Alberto. Well, he's got through now, and that was probably as a result of an issue for D'Alberto. I gather he's run a little bit wide there. We might catch a replay of that, but certainly he'll want to stick to the tail of Jamie Whincup and show he's more than capable of running with these guys.
2-for-1 deal for Whincup. Managed to get them both and clear on through. Flashing the lights at the Lamborghini just down the road. The Richard Gartner car that is nearly 3 laps down on the leaders of the race. Whincup looked to the outside, waiting and watching. Where does he go? He dives for the inside, gets through. And he's got that margin now to get clear of Story. Van Gisbergen on board. The 129 Lamborghini. Just inside the inset shot there in pit lane.
Now the one point to make about that Lamborghini is it's a couple of generations down on some of the technology of the Mercedes AMGs. It's still a current spec GT3 car, but that car is about 3 seasons old now. It isn't the most recent, most current update to the Lamborghini Huracan. That's the Evo. There's a couple of those in this part of the world. None racing an Australian GT at the moment. This car likely will be upgraded in the not too distant future, but the spec on the car, there's various different things with the electronics, some of the aero, minor tweaks. Those AMGs are a little bit further down the road on that front. So Shane was saying that he thinks that might just be the edge that'll allow Jamie and certainly someone like Tony D'Alberto to just creep ahead just a little bit. But I wouldn't discount the 129 Lamborghini to get right in this fight if the opportunity exists. And if the field gets closed up for any reason, we are right on. As you predicted, Ryan Simpson takes over the lead of this race. It's shown as about 16 seconds on Jamie Whincup. They did increase their lead. They gained 6 seconds on their minimum stop time over their rivals. So it was no real surprise that the 3 Mercedes came out nose to tail, because they stopped all for 121 seconds, 2 minutes 1. So they've kept that momentum going. Ryan Simpson has kept the lead. He's extended it slightly, but it'll be down to what happens now with Jamie Whincup. I expect this board will light up with purple sectors before too much longer.
It's starting to do so too. He set the fastest lap of the race last time around, 1:47.19. Margin's 15 seconds to Ryan Simpson in the lead. So with it all washed out, Simpson leads by 15 seconds back to Whincup. Story and D'Alberto next. Garth Tanis 30 seconds down the road from D'Alberto and about 10 seconds in front of Van Gisbergen. So Garth and Shane, they're co-drivers later in the year for the Enduros in supercars. Right now, it means nothing. Game on between them for 5th and 6th in this motor race. Those 6 cars are the cars left on the lead lap at the moment. And we are now right on half race distance. 1 hour 30 down, 1 hour 30 to go as we follow and watch Jamie Whincup in the 777 Mercedes. Now the margin to Ryan Simpson's what we're watching. Simpson last time a 1:48.74. Whincup's on the march, 1:46.29. New fastest lap of the race. Yes, he might start hunting this McLaren, but don't forget, pit stop time for the remaining stop will be working against Jamie, and he'll need to do that all over again. He'll need some help. He needs a safety car or something to bring him back up there into the game, but he's doing the business at the moment, moving away from Dom Story, moving away from Tony D'Alberto, and we've now hit that half race point in the second round of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. We get to watch one of the greats go to work here in an awesome car and an awesome track with clear road in front, and he starts the hunt. 13.4 seconds is the margin to the McLaren, and at this rate he'll be there in about 7 laps.
Keep a close eye on the number 129 entry of Shane Van Gisbergen, back in position number 6. He's more than a minute down on the leaders, but he'll make quick amends into that one as Jamie Whincup continues to fire out purple sectors.
We'll take a break here on our live coverage of the live stream from the Shannons Nationals. We'll take more action for the Australian Endurance Championship when we come back in just a sec.
What is your first memory of motorsport?
My first memory of motorsport was when my mum was competing and they were in Coffs Harbour doing a rally, and I was probably about 4 or 5 and they won, and I got to stand on the bonnet of the car, which I thought was pretty cool.
Why do you love motorsport?
For me, I really enjoy the feeling of driving a car. It's a really good buzz, and I love the challenge, and then also the people, you know, and the teamwork and being involved in a team like that. So yeah, I like how difficult it is and the satisfaction when you get it done right.
Why should girls like me get involved in motorsport?
Definitely think more girls should get involved in motorsport because it's so much fun. So I think it's great for girls to be able to see everything that's involved in motorsport and find something that they might like and want to pursue, and they're really good at it.
How do I get started in motorsport?
Programs like this, like Dare to Be Different, and CAMS, which run all the motorsport activities in the country. So you can go onto the CAMS website and search there, and you'll find a whole list of car clubs, so you can find your local car club and go out and meet people that are like-minded, like you, like motorsport, that are in your area, and then you can go from there.
How is Harry Bates such an amazing driver?
That's a cheeky question. Harry Bates is such an amazing driver because I taught him how to write pace notes. So I think I, taught him everything he knows. That's why.
I still think you're better than him.
Oh, me too. Don't tell him that.
Stay in the moment, they say, but you're 4 steps ahead. Executing plans you've rehearsed countless times before, and moving on to the next thing. Because if you think you're done, you've only just begun. At Michelin, we never stop thinking about our next move. Or yours.
When I was a kid, I loved cars.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life.
My life is hot rods, designing them, building them, and racing.
Hand-built with a stainless steel roof.
They won the Monte Carlo Rally 4 times.
Like Dad, I've always been a Ford man.
In '71, this was the fastest four-door car in the world.
Insurance? Shannons, of course.
The Finke Desert Race here, it's the Olympics of motorsport, once a year.
I've been to Baja and Dakar, and you don't get this anywhere else in the world.
You look at the track, you think, why would anyone want to race down this track?
Something in this red dirt out here, I don't know, it just seeps into the skin and it gets into the blood flow, and it's going to be an exciting race, I think.
We do 230 Ks in under 2 hours with 2 fuel stops.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever done, but I love it.
It's the Bathurst of off-road racing.
Yeah, the Finke Desert Race, can't wait to see. You can catch TV coverage. Check your local guides on July 27. A guy who's checking his local guide at the moment, and he's logged on and working his way forward, Jamie Whincup. He's got the margin down to 10 seconds to our leader, Ryan Simpson. Welcome back to our live streaming coverage of round 2 of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship, round 4 of the Australian GT Championship as well, as Jamie Whincup works his way by the KTM Crossbow with Glenn Wood at the wheel, the car that leads the GT4 class. That's just cost him a little bit of time to Ryan Simpson. We've raced through 1 hour and 36 so far, 3-hour race. We're counting down the clock at the top left of your screen, and this guy's counting down the time to the leader. He got it down under 10 seconds, but that time that he was behind the KTM just slowed him a little bit. So it's Ryan Simpson in the McLaren that leads the way as the sun really does poke through here on a changeable weather condition day at the Bend Motorsport Park. Whincup, though, is on the hunt. He's got a fast Mercedes-Benz, but the new fastest lap of the race has just been set last time around by his old GRM teammate, Garth Tander, in the Audi 146.11. Tander is 5th in the race. He's 42 seconds away from the lead, and he's 27 seconds away from the next position car on the road, and that's Tony D'Alberto. So we've got a really interesting race with a lot of the gun drivers now behind the wheel making some serious pace in this stage of the race. We'll head down to the lane. Here's Emma.
Justin McMillan just jumped out of the car. Your stint is done. How did you enjoy it around this circuit in the KTM?
It's great. Not many cars out there, so it was quite easy. It was quite a good run. No, I really enjoyed it. It was good. Cold weather, didn't need the cool suit. It was great.
Yeah, they're throwing some tricky conditions at you this weekend, that's for sure.
A little bit, yeah. I enjoyed the rain. It was quite good. And we were fast in the wet, so it was great.
Hey, I enjoy coming down to your garage because you guys really don't take yourself too seriously. Is it true that on the radio you were just chatting to your engineer about your alcoholic beverages and food preferences for tonight?
Yeah, I was arranging that for tonight whilst I was coming in for the pit stop.
Hey, you've raced here before. What are some of the things you love about a track like this?
Oh, this is a really fast-flowing track. So over the back section, the right-hander, where it's fast, it's a real GT track.
Thanks, Justin. Enjoy the gin and tonics, I believe it was.
Thank you.
Real character is Justin McMillan, of course, been in the outright battle in GT3. Spent a lot of time in his Lamborghini Gallardo REXs, LP600 4s, all manner of rider engineering modified Gallardos. Stepped it up to the 7.9 litre Camaro GT3. Loves his hot rods, got a good collection of hot rods, good collection of Lamborghinis at one stage too, including a Miura, which I noticed one of those down in the parking area a little bit earlier on the weekend. He stepped from that, of course, across to GT4. Has been a great stalwart of the GT4 competition over the last couple of seasons with the KTM Crossbow, another of the rider engineering built vehicles in association with KTM. They've been great worldwide. We want to see a bit more GT4 competition. There's been a few of them come in and out, and we want to see more of those build. It's an emerging market for that particular style of GT car, but still, it's a bit hard to go past the car on screen. The lines and the sound of the glorious AMG GT3, the Audi GT3, the Lamborghini GT3, the McLaren looks sensational. They are just a sexy car. Speaking of sexy, down to Cameron in pit lane.
Yeah, I was very happy with that segue, but I've got a far sexier man standing next to me, and that's Peter Hackett. Now, Peter, Dom Story sitting in third at the moment. Got some big names around him. Big job to do for the end of the race.
Yeah, look, he's really enjoying the challenge, and he's super quick here now, AMG GT3. He loves the car, and, you know, he loves mixing it with the likes of Whincup and D'Alberto, and he's doing a great job. He's been super quick in our car for the last few years, and hopefully he can learn a little bit over the next hour and a half or whatever it is with Tony behind him and Jamie in front.
I kept dropping into the garage because the commentators were wondering, your pace just dropped off after that first stop. Did you have any issues with the car, or was it just tyre?
No, we bled the tyres down, and it just takes a while for our tyres to come back up. I don't know what it's like for everybody else, but for our tyres to come in, it takes a little time. And Max had a big go at me, and, you know, it's a 3-hour race. I've made those mistakes before where you turn in on someone and end the day. So, you know, I knew I'd be able to stay with him. I didn't know how the rest of the race was going to end up, but if I turned in on him, then we would have had contact. So it was like, I'll just let you through and I'll see if I can get you back later.
Ambient is freezing out here at the moment, even though there's a bit of sunshine out on track. How much longer did it take to get that tyre up to temp and up to pressure?
We haven't really had any dry tyre, slick tyre running all weekend. So, you know, we're all in uncharted territory at the moment. On the out lap, even the formation lap, we're learning things. I was sitting on the grid and my brakes were smoking because I'd actually worked them a little bit too hard. So, you know, I think experience comes in this game at this level, and that's why the guys at the front are where they are.
So expectation for the rest of this race, where do you think, can he hold on to this podium?
Yeah, I think the car's strong enough, and Dom is a super pro. You know, he's well and truly capable of running with those guys in the front. We've got some sponsors upstairs that are cheering us on, and that helps always as well. So, you know, hopefully we'll have some luck go our way this time.
Well, hopefully get some champagne. Good luck.
Thanks very much.
That margin out front between Ryan Simpson and Jamie Whincup's now 8.17 seconds as we focus in on this fight of the Flying Mercs. Dom Story, P3, Tony D'Alberto, P4. Tander's 25 seconds down the road from them, a bit further back in the Audi, and he's got 15 seconds back to Shane van Gisbergen. So they're all running a little bit of a lonely race at the moment with some margins between them, but you know what this is like. It lights up later on, a safety car, a bit of drama. They're all compressed, and it turns into one heck of a fight for that run home to the checkered flag. It's a 3-hour timed race. If you've just joined us, welcome to our coverage on the live stream from the Shannons Nationals, round 3 this weekend of the Shannons Nationals, with the GT cars here, Formula 4's here, TCR's here, with a couple more races tomorrow. Improved production as well. It's a big schedule with sports sedans joining in the mix, the National Sports Sedan Series here as well. Looking here at the AMG Mercedes-Benz of Story and D'Alberto coming up on the back of the Lamborghini, with Hadrian Morel now at the wheel of this car, the only trophy class car, the older spec Lambo. Still pretty fast in a straight line though, even though it is one of the older generation cars, which always makes it a little difficult for the leaders in the outright cars to comfortably worked their way through, but they've negotiated that Lamborghini right now. As we look at Tony D'Alberto, who's keeping the miles up this year before he drives with Fabian Coulthard again in the Shell V-Power Mustang for the Supercars Enduros. Honda TCR program, Mercedes Enduro program here with Max Twigg getting lots of miles in very different cars. Former full-timer in the Supercars Championship and a champ in what was then, well, before it was known as Super 2 in 2007. It's a long time since he won that series and moved into the main game. His team, his family, his father Al ran their own team there for a time with a Commodore, and then later with a Falcon, and then back to a Commodore with assistance and connection to Walkinshaw Racing. He's one of the guys that's finished up his full-time supercar career and ended up with a really solid responsibility in the back end of the year for one of the biggest teams in the Supercars Championship, and able to put some variety into his motor racing with this GT stuff. These two cars have been so close all race, no matter who's been on board each of the cars. Peter Hackett we heard from earlier with Cam. We might get a catch-up soon with Max Twigg, who is driving with Tony D'Alberto, the reigning endurance champs in the WM Waste number 8 car. Of course, Max has been a multiple Pro-Am champion in Porsche Carrera Cup, where he's been a great runner over the years. He's done a lot of GT racing too, in Porsches and in Mercs as well. Spent some time with the Erebus team. He and Jeff Emery teaming up. Now they're fighting one another in different cars. Emery in the Audi that he shares with Garth Tander. And the shot inset there of the team at Melbourne Performance Centre. Watching on with the number 1 car, their car in position 5. It's 37 seconds down on the lead of the race at the moment, with an hour 15 left on the clock. And in that GT4 fight that we've covered off a little this weekend, the Glenn Wood driven car that Justin McMillan drove earlier on is 67 seconds in the lead of the Trent Harrison car that is on the screen right here, right now, car 50 that he shares with David Crampton. 1 car out of the race. If you're joining us at the moment, Scott Taylor and Craig Baird. That car came to a standstill on the track with Scott at the wheel. It is the only retirement from the race so far. Let's jump back to the lane with Cam.
Well, I've got Jeff Emery, Garth Tander, fastest car on track at the moment. In fact, I think that's a new lap record for Australian GT. You've got to be happy when that's the car, the driver you hand the car over to, surely.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Garth's a class act. He's obviously he's pedaling the car really nicely. I mean, I probably struggled a bit in the tricky conditions when it started raining before, so I've given him a really big job now. So he's put his head down and he's having a fair crack, which is awesome.
Well, on that, with your stint early on, we didn't watch that. I spoke to the team as well, and they said just got caught out slightly with that wet weather. How much did it switch the car off for you?
Oh, it was massive for me. Like, I really, really struggled. Like, we were probably, a couple of seconds a lap off most of those guys at some point, So, when it got slippery, I had nothing. It just really struggled for some reason. So I don't know why, but maybe it's just me.
As you went longer on into that run, though, we've just been talking with a few drivers. The low ambient temperature and not much dry running this weekend's caught a few out. Would you say you're in that camp?
No, look, in the second part of the stint was obviously our fastest part of the stint. So I think we were all, fastest car out there in the second part of the stint. So when it dried up, our car came on really nicely.
Now, when you look at these times, and I know you're analysing them very closely, what's your target? Where do you think you can get to?
I reckon he'll crack a 45 out of it when he drops a bit of fuel out of it. No doubt.
Are you a genuine shot at that top step, you think? Barring safety car, obviously, that really throws everything out the window.
Yeah, obviously we've got to make up a second a lap now for the time that I've lost in my stint. So, yeah, he's doing it at the moment. He's cracking a second a lap on him, so we'll see how we go.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, guys. Cheers.
Problem cam for the Justin McMillan and Glenn Wood KTM. It's Glenn at the wheel. They are the class leader in GT4, 8th overall, and it has ground to a halt, which is a real drama. It's off the race circuit, but it's just, it's in a place where it's not in the best of positions. Clearly it is a fair way off the road, but if one car can get there, another car can as well. So we'll just wait and see if Cam's race control decides to make a call on this. That KTM has been unable to restart. It just popped up in a screen while Cam was talking to Jeff Emery and started running quite slowly, and it is ground to a halt. This is Jamie Whincup, 7.3 seconds off the lead of Ryan Simpson in the McLaren. So he hasn't been able to really He started off hacking slabs out of that margin, Sean, but he hasn't been able to keep hacking. It's been smaller scalpel pieces rather than sledgehammer.
There it is on screen. You could see it just as he came through the final corner. And again, there is Ryan Simpson turning into turn 1. There is Jamie Whincup. The gap's still 7 seconds. It's stabilised. Dom Story still in position 3 with Tony D'Alberto not too far behind him. Looking at the KTM crossbow, it does on the odd occasion have a hiccup with the electronic systems. So what you might have found is that Glenn Woods just rolled the car off the circuit, stop it, reset the systems, get it fired up again. We saw it blow some exhaust gas out the tail. Hopefully that means he's managed to get the car going again and he can drive it back to pit lane potentially. It has brought them to a stop in the past. Certainly the first year they ran it at the Bathurst 12 hour. They were running miles in front of the GT4 field, and unfortunately the way the electronic systems have been worked and where they placed them, well, there's the 50 into pit lane. Both of the KTM crossbows are having a drama. So that is Trent Harrison in pit lane in the Vantage Freight entry. There's Dave Crampton, car owner, right of screen.
Maybe the updates.
They're having a drama, so certainly something going on with the M Motorsport team. But the first year in at the Bathurst 12 hour, the electronics was located too close to the exhaust as we have a yellow flag, a safety car. So it could be that that is for the stranded blue entry of Glenwood. But yeah, the way the things were located, so the electronics, the heat, all those things are a bit of an issue. Let's go down to camera and see if we can get an update.
48 is it lost all drive. They believe it might be a drive shaft. With the 50 of Crampton and Harrison, it's stuck in gear, so they're just trying to get that out of gear at the moment. You can see them now driving it up on the axle stands in the garage, trying to work through those gears.
Max Twigg, you said you were a little bit tired, so sit back, relax, enjoy, watch on, and watch Tony bring this home. Yeah,
I hope so. I just see a safety car coming now. It was on the back of yeah, he's travelling.
He's in a battle.
Oh, he's in a battle. I'm still a bit flustered, to be honest. The car was worn out. The last 8 laps, I caught a couple of cars in a bad spot and then back on top of me again. So I wasn't quite as fit as I thought I was. But Tony's in a battle with Dom Story, and it's a real battle. I mean, those guys are equally paired in the same car, so it's going to be a really top race to watch unfold. I think it's going to be a good run to the finish.
What would it mean for you to get another podium?
Sorry,
what would it mean to you to get another podium after Phillip Island?
No, that's exactly what we need. I mean, that's what you race for, isn't it? To get on the podium and squirt champagne. So I don't want to miss it by one spot. I think Jamie's probably got it. Like that guy's just super quick and organised. He's not going to make mistakes from here. It's really going to be between Tony and McLaren and the other Ben. So I think it's just going to be a good race. I can't tell you what's going to happen. I hope we finish second. I think second would be a great result for us.
Thanks for the chat.
All right, thanks, bye.
The Lambo back in the lane as that safety car was being called. Van Gisbergen had brought that car back in.
I wonder whether that was a strategy play, whether they knew what was coming, and that's to get another stop out of the way. They didn't look like they were rushing around too much. Another bottle of juice for Shane to use to just keep through to the end of the keep hydrated through to the end of the race.
It's still on the lead lap. They're still on the lead lap. He'll catch the chain, and that gets him where they were. They were all of a minute off the lead, I think, or thereabouts. Once it had all played out from Liam Talbot's stint and then the pit stop time. So why not? I mean, the yellow was called, so they've ended up in a good position here because it moves him further forward from where he otherwise would have been. Why not? Worth it.
The other thing is they are the last car to have committed, the first car rather, to have committed all their stops. This is not the sight we want to see for the number 48 entry. These cars have been relatively bulletproof. There have been the odd setbacks. Again, it looked like maybe they need to stop it and restart it. They'll drag it back, see what the issue is there. That's a big impact in their championship points, but of course they're battling the number 50 entry, which is sitting in pit lane, so it's gone out in sympathy.
Hearing a report through that the left-hand tyres were changed on the Lamborghini for Shane Van Gisbergen as this KTM is strapped and towed back to the pit lane.
This does get interesting though. Just one thing I'd point out is we have an hour 8 left in this race. These cars will do just over about maybe an hour 5, thereabouts. So not too far past an hour, full distance at full speed on a tank of fuel. So they were gambling, they were rolling the dice to say this will be the last stop for that car. Some of these other cars are going to have to come in again. SVG could be in the box seat.
We like it when they roll the dice. It could create one heck of a finish here. Stay with us on the live stream coverage of the Shannons Nationals from the Ben Motorsport Park. The safety car is on the road. The McLaren leads the way. The Mercs are lined up. We'll take a break. More action when we come back.
Are you a motoring enthusiast? Shannons are giving you the chance to win a trip to the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indy 500. Kick off in New York, then drive from Chicago to the Indianapolis 500 and Nashville in a Lincoln Continental. Visit some of America's unique automotive museums and collections, with up to $5,000 spending money for eligible Shannons Club members. Plus, win a new Indian Scout motorcycle. To enter, get a quote on your special car, spouse's car, daily drive, your bike or home. Take out a new policy for even more chances of winning. Call Shannons on 13 46 46 or go online today.
Safer vehicle choices save lives. Find out who survives.
Success looks like this. Hard work looks like this. Determination, yeah, we got that. Skills, got those too.
We are right where we belong.
Right where we belong.
And we aren't going anywhere.
Life feels good in the fast lane. Forget the boundaries, forget the rules. Be different. Be different. Be different. Be different. See our stories at daretobedifferent.com.
What's my podcast about? It's for people that love a good driving yarn. This connection between the owners and the machine. That's Rusty's Garage, and it's free on Podcast One.
Podcast One.
Getting ready for a restart after that stoppage to recover the number 48 KTM Crossbow of Glenwood. He'd just taken over not too long before from Justin McMillan, who had served his minimum run in the car. 45% race distance, about 81 minutes. Most of the teams came down pit lane around that point and served out the drivers who had started this race. The sun, as you can see, is setting. That adds another element. The great news is the rain is gone. Leading this race, Ryan Simpson, who has been an absolute sensation in the 59 Racing McLaren since he debuted in the car last time out at Phillip Island. Second is Jamie Whincup, who had been storming through but unable over the laps before the safety car intervention to actually make much of an impact on Simpson's lead. Well, he's right under his rear wing now. Dom Story keen to make amends, the 2017 Australian Endurance Champion, alongside Peter Hackett. They will be looking to achieve everything they can out of the number 63 Eggleston Motorsport Mercedes AMG. There is the number one entry of the championship points leader coming into this race. Garth Tander at the wheel of the car that was started by Jeff Emery. We wondered whether he had an issue. He admitted that the slippery conditions were a bit of a setback during the middle part of his stint. As we go green again, Ryan Simpson controlling the field. What does Jamie Whincup have off the restart? Will he make the move early? Will Ryan Simpson hold him out? This is game on, Aaron Noonan. We have just on an hour left in this race.
Looking forward to it. They're all bunched up. We're good to go. Green flag again. Whincup pounces at turn one. Shows the nose of the Merc, but Ryan Simpson's up for the challenge. The McLaren hangs on to the lead. He does not yield. And Whincup has to go back to the drawing board. Tander's in the mix here too, right on the back of Tony D'Alberto. And the Audi's down the inside. Whincup's down the inside. Long way round there for J-Dub. Got it done. Change of the lead.
That was a beautiful move by the Ben Motorsport Park Mercedes. Jamie Whincup impressing. We were looking forward to seeing a bit of this at Phillip Island. Didn't quite translate that way, but with an hour to go, Jamie Whincup takes over the helm. Garth Tander still held out by Tony D'Alberto in that all-green machine. These are the two cars that were battling for the top end of the championship as we left Phillip Island. They're right at the top of the point score, but they've got a little bit of work to do because that 59 Racing Team entry, based on the way things are right now, Noons, takes over the championship points lead if they can stick where they are in this race. Look who's coming up behind him. He's already had all 3 stops done. The drivers in front of him have only committed 2 of their compulsory time pit stops, and that is Shane van Gisbergen. Keep a close eye on that menacing black Lamborghini.
So, 62 minutes of racing left on the clock, Sean. Is there enough fuel in that Lambo? Will it be good enough on its tyres? Was a safety car be nicer for it to help it get to the end, but therefore give the others an opportunity to pit?
I think you'll find, looking at some of the past Bathurst 12 hours, we've seen cars run up to 65, maybe north of that to 70 minutes. Usually not the likes of the Mercedes. The Audi have been able to achieve it, and I think the Lambo may well be good enough to do that. We've seen economy runs as now the leaders dive into pit lane. Well, that's Dom Story coming in. Tony D'Alberto right behind them. Nothing to be gained, locked in that battle with the McLaren and the 777 Mercedes. So let them have fresh air. We'll commit our stops, get going again. They've got an hour to go. They admit that maybe, Jack Perkins was saying it last time round at Phillip Island, 61 minutes is about the window that the Mercedes is happy with. Well, they're in pit lane. They will leave with about 60 minutes left on the clock. As for Van Gisbergen, I think he can do it. He's a smart enough driver. We've seen him do economy runs before to make that car last. If there's another safety car intervention, he's in the box seat. But right now, he's moving around very quickly. Will it be a battle though? Will he go on a conservation run though? He might be running to a time, because if he burns up too much fuel trying to battle these guys in front of him, he doesn't really need to achieve much. They have to stop for another 2 minutes each. A little bit wide there for Ryan Simpson just on the exit, so he needs to be careful, but he's pushing on pretty hard. He's also got Garth Tander ranging up behind him in the #1 Valvoline Audi, so he's going to have a little bit of company fairly soon. It'll be interesting to see when these guys actually commit their next stop. We saw it at Phillip Island, didn't we? They left until about 40 minutes to go in the race before Jeff Emery came in, or Garth Tander took over for that last leg on the run to the flag, and that really gave them the advantage, because in the end, it's the biggest winning margin that had happened for Australian GT at Phillip Island. It was about 22 seconds in the end. So certainly there've been some close races. Shane van Gisbergen was a part of one of those, 0.2 of a second, I think it was, with Nathan Morecambe, the 2 McLaren 650Ss, but that was Phillip Island. This is the bend, and very different conditions as we get into very much setting sun.
We've got a really interesting run home. We have hit the 2-hour mark, 1 hour to go on the clock in this Camps Australian Endurance Championship and GT Championship round. Here's Whincup, new fastest lap of the race. He's got some clean air, 1:45.66. 4-second margin back to Ryan Simpson. Here's Tander. Van Gisbergen's next in the Lamborghini. And of course, remember that Dom Story and Tony D'Alberto's Mercedes are both sitting in the pit lane at the moment, taking their 3rd and final stop. Oh. And they've been released right together.
Does this feel like deja vu? I seem to recall a certain #1 Audi and a #8 Mercedes at Phillip Island. There was a little bit more room in that one, but that incurred, in fact, the #1 Audi a 5-second additional time stop in their last compulsory stop. So I don't think that's going to be an issue this time around. It was just a nice leave by Dom Story to get the jump. That's the way they came in. They maintained that advantage. So both teams have made very good stops. That's their last one in the books. 59 minutes, 10 seconds on the clock. They leave pit lane. They should be good on fuel. Let's see what happens further forward in this field. I'll be interested to see at the end of this lap where SVG is in relation to these guys, because I think that's the race. He could have a huge margin up his sleeve.
I reckon he's looking pretty good. It's like there's been an invisible hockey strap between these two all day. These two Mercedes-Benz have been running around together in the opening stages with Peter Hackett and Max Twigg, and now with Dom Story and Tony D'Alberto at the helm. Whincup out front with that fastest lap of the race last time around. 5.5 seconds. He's built back to Ryan Simpson, but remember that he needs to build as much margin as he can. The pit stop time for that 777 Mercedes, because remember, Jamie Whincup is a pro-ranked driver. It attracts, it's great to attract a pro driver, but when you get a pro driver, they attract extra pit stop time. So what you get in terms of their skill and their speed, you lose in the pit stop time. So you've got to find that nice blend between a driver that has got the same level of experience but can produce speed. Ryan Simpson's a really good mixture here. He's got lots of experience in a range of categories. Doesn't have a profile like Garth Tander or Jamie Whincup, so doesn't attract the same sort of pit stop times, but he's holding his own. He was up for the fight with Whincup on that restart, and Tander hasn't exactly pounced. In fact, you say stuff like that, and you know what? He just gives the game away because he knows that, well, there's no real point because we know where we are in the pit stop cycle of the time between these two cars.
Well, they're going to make up 6 seconds during that stop. So as long as he can stay with Garth Tander and really not let the drivers in front of him, like Jamie Whincup, get too far away, he'll be pretty right. But they've still got a lot of work to do. There's still, 57 minutes left in this race. Shane van Gisbergen is well and truly in the box seat as it stands right now because the 3 drivers ahead of him, and that equates to something like about 10 seconds in front of him on the road. Of course, he will gain a lap. He was the first car the next lap down. He's not on lap 63. He's on lap 62. They will jump forward in this race, and he has a comfortable margin to the next car in line, which at the moment is Dom Story. Last time round, there was very little separating the pace of the 129 Lamborghini and the 63 Mercedes, so it's going to get very, very interesting. So the main fight, I think, is this car on screen, who should emerge somewhere near 30 seconds up on the 3 cars in front of him, and he's closing in just a margin on them. Jamie Whincup's the only fly in that ointment. He might be able to eke out a little bit more advantage by the time he comes in for his last stop. But Shane van Gisbergen very much in the box seat. So that was a great strategy call, and it was timed right. It depended on where he was on the circuit. When they knew that safety car was going out, they called him straight in. They got that last stop in the bag. Fuel, still a bit of an issue, but right at the moment, he's pretty much right where he needs to be.
Really interested that maybe someone else didn't try to play the same card before the safety car pulled off and rolled the dice a little bit on trying to make it home on fuel and tyre life at the end. We might get a few questions answered. We might get the guys in the pit lane to go and ask a few teams what they thought of the Lamborghini team's strategy. Whincup setting fastest sectors, so the times are starting to really tumble. Some of the fuel starting to burn out of these cars. 1:45.66, his fastest lap of the race, and Tander here sits second, 7 seconds down on the road. So on the road, Van Gisbergen's 4th behind those top 3 cars, but he's actually 1 lap behind them where he is in the order. But remember, he gets that back when they all peel off and make their pit stop. So he's in a pretty good position when all that happens. These two, the invisible hockey strap Mercedes AMG performance driving crew of Dom Story and Tony D'Alberto, we just had to put the camera on them just to check they're still in the same frame. We have managed to achieve that purpose, and they have done it very nicely again. It's nice that they're staying together and not leaving one another alone and being lonely and driving together, driving on the road on their own. It's nice for some company out there.
It is nice to have some company out there. Certainly as it gets darker, you need to be following somebody around, and perhaps that's what Tony D'Alberto is just trying to get used to, is what the tail of the 63 Mercedes looks like. Gee, very low ride height wise as the body leans across. Looks like the spring rates in the 63 car might be a tad different to the number 8. It's certainly one of the options that the teams have to be able to set up the car. So at the front of the field, we still have Garth Tander leading Ryan Simpson. Back down to Cameron for a bit of an update.
Well, Aaron Noonan, Sean Henshaw, you want to know about the strategy calls on some of the teams down here? I straight away go to Ben Eggleston to talk about some of the strategies that are rolling out at the moment. The Lamborghini with Shane van Gisbergen, it looks like they've rolled the dice and come up beautifully.
Yeah, I think they've pulled a winner there. I think at the end of the day, their fuel consumption must be pretty good. Shane knows what he's doing, saving fuel, so they pulled it absolutely perfectly. I think probably 1 or 2 laps too early for us to do it with our car, but obviously theirs is they do the numbers and they bang on to make it home, so good luck.
So did you actually crunch the numbers to see whether was that a consideration for you?
Yeah, our car probably could have done it. Basically, it just took so long to get that car off track. Was it sitting there? We thought it was going to be easy just to pull it out of the way. Would have been a quick safety car. It turned out to be a long one in their favour, and it's worked for them, I think. So I reckon they're in the box seat up the road, about 2 minutes up the road, I reckon.
Well, looks like it, but you never know, mate. Still plenty of racing to go. Good luck, Ben.
Absolutely. Cheers, mate.
Just catching up with Fraser Ross, who usually is all smiles because I know how much you love driving that car, but at the moment looking very nervous watching on.
Yeah, it's tough watching Ryan Simpson get hunted down. He's doing a fantastic job out there with some well-credentialed drivers, holding his own. So look, there's still a long way to go. We've got one more stop to go. Obviously, the Lambo's done a good job with that, with his stop, but we'll see how it goes with us.
Thanks, Fraser. Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, we've got to jump in there. We've got a problem for Jamie Whincup. The 777 Mercedes is bumping its way down the road. It looks like it's not doing. It's missing and popping and banging and not making pace for the 777 Mercedes-Benz.
You can hear it coming past us where we are in the commentary position. It sounds more like a lawnmower than a GT3 car at its peak, but it's bouncing around. That's unusual, whether something's broken in the drive line and that's just bouncing the car around. No doubt we'll find out about it. It doesn't look like there's wheel damage. All the wheels seem to be pointing in the right direction. None of the four corners look like they're down on pressure. It's bouncing very strangely. Something is definitely not right with that car. That might be the last we see of the 777.
And now there's some chat that they're out of juice. And that's why it's bumping its way around the circuit.
That would explain what's going on. That's
so they've gone a bit too... What is it about Whincup and fuel?
Or tyres.
I know we're not at Bathurst, but he's managed to make it back to the lane.
This is the Whincup curse. We give it the commentator's curse, but unfortunately for Jamie, this is not the way he wanted to run this race when he was right in the box seat to really push this car forward.
And Ben Eggleston answered the question why their Mercedes didn't take that opportunity to pit, so Whincup's at least made it back. When this pit stop's all shuffled out with, we'll get the guys to go and talk to Phil Keed and the team. But at least he's made it back. They're staying in the race.
Yeah, frustration to be sitting on the grid like this, back in pit lane. They don't need an extra stop. That's not what all this should have been about. They're doing everything they can to race into this, and well, Jamie Whincup, he takes that position, he comes back but loses time, so they just picked the wrong time to bring that car back down pit lane for that last stop. And a tyre change, may as well whilst they're there, they've got their minimum time, they're still within that window. It's just how much time he lost in that last half lap. Interesting to see what his overall lap time is. But gee, Shane van Gisbergen hasn't lost much, has he? Wow, still pumping around. 47.4 last time around, 47.2 for race leader. Shane van Gisbergen now jumps up to position 2. Garth Tander in the pit lane for his last stop in the number 1 entry. His pace pretty impressive too. Garth Tander's best, 146.1. 145.6 is the quickest. That was Jamie Whincup. I think that's the next best time with respect to overall times to Garth Tander. So Jeff Emery just really didn't have the groove on early in the race, lost that time, but certainly Garth Tander has made that up. Where they come out all in relation to Shane van Gisbergen, that'll be interesting. How late the Ryan Simpson 59 entry pits will be interesting too. Again, that was late in the race, if you recall, last time at Phillip Island. They left it until very late in the piece.
Here's a fight. Tander's taken his last stop and rejoins right with Dom Story and Tony D'Alberto. So this is 3rd, 4th and 5th. Ryan Simpson out front by a lap and a little bit over Shane van Gisbergen, but that McLaren yet to stop for its 3rd pit stop. So the Lambo's right in the game. Making that stop under safety car has been perfectly timed for them. Whincup rejoins. He will be 6th and the last championship running car in the race. This is a genuine fight though here for podium position. Dom Story all over the back of Tander, who's trying to get himself up and rolling on his outlap in that Valvoline number 1 Audi. And the Kiwis putting the pressure on. Sparks fly as they bottom out through that triple right-hander, kicking up some dirt. D'Alberto trying to put the pressure now onto Dom Story. Ryan Simpson sets the McLaren's fastest lap of the race, that time across the line, 146.79. Here is the car that leads the race, car number 59, but it does need to stop one more time.
You can see how much ground he lost. He was not too far from the tail of the 59 Racing McLaren by the time he was forced to pull up. Jamie Whincup comes out. He's now immediately ahead of Ryan Simpson, but a little bit further back down the road by virtue of that stop and that fuel issue. Tony D'Alberto's looking pretty racy. He's really stepped up the game. See, the sun's just starting to dip behind the hill. We've gone to just before 5 p.m. here in South Australia, and it's going to get very interesting as we fire through these final laps. When will Ryan Simpson come down pit lane? Based on strategy last time round, maybe in about 10 minutes or so. The 59 Racing McLaren 720S as Tony D'Alberto shows the nose again to Dom Story. Dom's aware of that. He will do what he needs to do to just keep that 63 entry wide and right on the ideal racing line. Not to give the opportunity, not to make it too easy for Tony D'Alberto and force the young Victorian to really step up and try and force his way past that 63 entry, because they need to, both these teams need to get back into this championship hunt. In fact, just prior to Jamie Whincup's hiccup, all that does is move some of these guys forward in the championship. It had worked at the 59 racing team entry. The way things are right now, it moved into the championship lead. So this is a good weekend for the McLaren team, and this is just what Fraser Ross wanted coming into this weekend, and it just adds justification to putting Ryan Simpson in the car. A number of people asked the question first up when he was placed in. Certainly he has the credentials, but he's adapted to this form of racing very, very nicely, and as the interview earlier showed, he's loving his time behind the wheel of a GT3 car.
And he's in pit lane now. That McLaren is in for its final pit stop with a margin at the line when the car's crossed of 1:52 back to Shane van Gisbergen. So that is a case now of waiting for this pit stop time. So what's the pit stop time for the McLaren?
For the McLaren, it is 1:15 seconds. So
nearly 2 minutes, a minute 57.
And about 30 seconds in pit lane, 25 seconds or so. So around, say, 1:20. Oh, it's 2:20.
So Van Gisbergen's margin when it all washes out, probably about 27, 28 seconds.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is where the race is on. This battle still, the invisible hockey strap between those two cars, goes on. This is now for position number 4 and 5. Tander's just getting away again. We saw this happen at Phillip Island. They, in fact, came out with about an hour to run, and he was the one who pitted perhaps earlier than most. It was the McLaren again that stopped last at Phillip Island. They took advantage of the position they were in. The team just doing the job they need to. They've got the tyres right, the driver's certainly right. His pace is very impressive. He will fire back out of pit lane, and I expect will take over position 2. Then down to Shane van Gisbergen. What are the fuel rates like? Have they missed something in this? Is the air density perhaps playing into that equation? Naturally aspirated 5.2 litre Lamborghini V10. It is going to be on an absolute economy run, but with an advantage of about 30 seconds and a driver like Shane van Gisbergen behind the wheel. I reckon they've got a little bit up their sleeves. That really was an inspired move, and very much down to track position when they called him into pit lane. When that safety car was called, that worked right into the favour of Shane van Gisbergen. Is a little bit wide for Dom Story. He's got to be careful doing too much of that. Hope the headlights are all right in these cars, because they're going to be needing them very, very soon.
Van Gisbergen's gone by the line, Sean, to take the lead officially of the race as Ryan Simpson's McLaren is about to rejoin the racing surface. So the next cars in the queue of Garth Tander, Dom Story and Tony D'Alberto are also just about to complete this lap. They're on their way. Tander's on his way onto the pit straight. The Mercs are on their way through turn 18. Here is the McLaren. Now Garth Tander has something to chase. This is for the real position, for position 2. So the Audi's on the podium at the moment. The Mercs are off it, 4 and 5, right in behind. Whincup is 6th. He is still on the lead lap, but he's about 5 seconds away from going down off the lead lap to his Red Bull teammate Shane van Gisbergen in that Lamborghini that leads the race by 36.9 seconds. So a really handy margin. Coming in under that safety car was perfect for them. Gave them the stop that they needed to tick their 3rd stop, gave them the fuel that they need. Yeah, looks like they're going to have to be a little bit careful, but you'd rather be on an economy run with 38 seconds up your sleeve than nothing. So they are in the box seat, 44 minutes left on the clock. Cam's in the lane.
He's finally popped into the garage. I've been looking for you, Liam Talbot. Firstly, where have you been hiding, and is it warmer than this pit lane right now?
No, I've just been sorting out my radio for the next race in Carrera Cup, so just got to change over radios. But yeah, really good drive today. Bit disappointed in my own performance. Just not used to this tyre, so that caught me out a little bit, but so much fun in a Lamborghini. Obviously, Trofeo Motorsport have made a absolutely brilliant strategy call. So yeah, and SVG's a weapon out there. So yeah, really great to be part of the team, and yeah, fingers crossed.
The question we do have, though, is just how much is he going to have to manage the rest of this race? I know you've got a great advantage, but is there much of a limitation on how much you can push?
Nah, all good. Set to jet, bring it on.
Set to jet, there you go, Noon. So he's not going to have to nurse it. And I'll tell you what, if one guy is told set to jet, Shane van Gisbergen might show us something very special. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, they've played themselves into the perfect position here, Cam, for this race at the Ben Motorsport Park. Van Gisbergen 38.7 seconds clear of Ryan Simpson, who in turn is 2 seconds clear of Garth Tander. The Audi is coming for the McLaren. Here are the Mercs, 4th and 5th. A minute behind on the road is Jamie Whincup in 6th. If you've just joined our live stream coverage, Whincup ran out of fuel earlier on, managed to get back to pit lane. Just hearing word, there is a penalty going to be issued to Tony D'Alberto, and I saw this at the time when Car 8 rejoined from its pit stop. He clearly crossed the blend line at the exit of pit exit that delineates where they feed back onto the track, onto the racing surface. So that's confirmed from Cam's race control. 5-second penalty for Tony D'Alberto and Max Twigg, car number 8, that will be added to its race time at the end of this race.
That makes this opportunity for Tony D'Alberto more important. He needs to get ahead of this car, ahead of Dom Story, and get further than 5 seconds down the road to make that position stick. Because as things stand right now, it looks very much like Ryan Simpson in the number 59 entry. He drives alongside Fraser Ross, and the number 1 entry of Garth Tander and Jeff Emery could be locked at the top of the championship points if things wind out this way, with Shane Van Gisbergen and Liam Talbot winning this race. This has become very, very interesting. So for Garth Tander, he'll be aware of that. He wants to get past the 59. There's such a big gap in points from 300 to 265 between first and second, 265 to 230, back down to third. That is how big the margin is. So it's a huge advantage in this championship track position, certainly at the top of the podium standings, and Garth Tander will be well aware of that. He'll do everything he can to get past that 59 McLaren.
He's taken 1.5 seconds away from the McLaren on the last lap, so he's got clear pace. He's already passed this McLaren earlier on. Remember when I said that Simpson was going to give him a race, and he managed to pounce and get down the inside on the run towards turn 5 and 6, and now he's zeroing in on the back of the McLaren. This is for second place in the race. All 3 stops have been done by all the runners. We're good to go to the checkered flag here at the Ben Motorsport Park, and Tander starts to put the pressure on, shows the nose, and it's like we've replayed from earlier on, because he's down the inside at turn 6, grabs position 2, and he should start to drive away given the pace of that number 1 Audi. Talking about pace, Whincup's the last car on the lead lap, but compared to his margin of the lead, he's getting a second back on Van Gisbergen each time. What this race really needs, and I'm sure Trofeo Motorsport don't want, a safety car to get these other guys in the game and close up. Simpson off the road. The McLaren in the background was spearing straight ahead, and he's off the road a long way off there. I noticed in the background he was slow through the previous corner, and then the car just didn't turn and went straight ahead in the background, and there's a major problem with the 720.
He's lost track position too. We can see just in the background then Dom Story and Tony D'Alberto shooting past the McLaren. He stopped the car, whether he needs to reset something or check something, or whether there's a bigger problem that they are dealing with. This is not ideal. 59 Racing Team not too long ago were leading this championship. Just look in the background. Ryan Simpson's got his hands full. He's run just a little wide there.
And that's what we saw in the background. He ran wide there, but not off the road.
And maybe grip level might be dirty tyres.
He makes it through the left okay, but it's the next right that's the problem here that Tander's negotiating. Boom, straight off the road. Has something let go? Is there a puncture? There's something a little strange there for the McLaren.
Well, we don't want Cam getting cold down there in pit lane, or Emma. They need to be running up and down pit lane trying to find out what's going on. Certainly plenty of activity on track to allow that to happen. Tony D'Alberto, he's off again, or whether he's just recovering the car. He may have run off again. There's Jamie Whincup.
That's a position.
He's passed.
That's 5th.
Yes, this will be back down pit lane. So effectively that negates these guys from where they are, not only out of the championship points lead, but this could drop them well back down the order. A lot of points on offer, and this really sets them back. Second last time, the charging Fraser Ross over the closing stages at Phillip Island. Got his way past Tony D'Alberto and up to position 2, but sadly, I don't think we're going to see that today. Ryan Simpson will find out what the issue is that has put the car off. You can see the light is starting to fade quite rapidly now. And the bright orange, papaya orange, McLaren 720S GT3 is looking for a visit down pit lane, Noons, and that's not ideal for them. Look at the smoke now starting from the left rear. That's the left front.
Left front, and that's why it wouldn't turn the right-hander before.
Yeah, so it could have been a tyre down, debris somewhere on the circuit potentially. We'll no doubt hear from the team after this stop, but a very slow return to pit lane for Ryan Simpson.
Emma might have more.
at the moment. Just checking in with Matt Saunders, car number 8. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that 5-second penalty.
Yeah, a bit of a rough day for us. I think the penalty was pretty fair in the end. Obviously, it was a pretty small mistake, but there's not much we can do, so we'll cop it on the chin, push on and see if we can get a bigger gap and try and clear Dom and see if we can push up the road and see what we can do.
Thanks, mate. Good luck.
Cool, thank you.
Not very often that you hear hand in the air from a race team. Normally they're arguing a penalty, but that one was pretty clear cut for Tony D'Alberto. Simpson's limping this McLaren back to the pit lane with drama with the left front, which is clearly let go in some way, shape or form. So no safety car. We're racing on. Van Gisbergen in the Lamborghini's the leader. 34 seconds his margin to Tander in the Audi. Cam, you might have more.
The update on the radio looked like the front left was down, as we could all see on the screen, but I've spoken to the team. He's reported that he's lost brakes or lost front, certainly the front left brake. So we'll find out more for you guys. I'm standing right back at the moment as he pulls his car up.
Yeah, not great news for the team. They were really in the box seat there at one stage. What I'm finding interesting is 4 seconds advantage to Garth Tander last time around. Now, whilst Liam Talbot said they're good to go, no drama on fuel, all that sort of thing, Van Gisbergen's circulating in 38s. Garth Tander's still pumping around, 48s. Garth Tander's still pumping out 46-second laps. So it's 2 seconds a lap. We have 36 minutes left in this race. I'm not sure he's going to make all of that up, but margin down last lap alone from 38 to 34 seconds.
Having a look here at the McLaren, the gentleman with the headset on there is Brendan Hogan, who's race engineering down there this weekend, who works with Will Davison in Tickford Racing. And
looks like a bit of damage too to the hub, doesn't it?
Yeah, that looks seriously damaged.
That's not good news. That's almost retirement time for that car. Certainly if they've lost left front brakes, they're not going to be able to in the next 36 minutes to be able to repair that in a hurry. That's disappointing. Brand new car, remember, this was a brand new car for Phillip Island. The car that was debuted at the Australian Grand Prix at the start of the year was a 720S GT3 that came from McLaren Automotive in the UK, especially for that event for Fraser Ross, but this was new before Phillip Island.
Your comment before about the pace of Van Gisbergen and Tander, well, Van Gisbergen's time's ballooned out. He did a 49 last time around, Tander a 46. So our timing screen's having a little bit of a drama here, keeping up with some of the data that's being pumped on through, but Tander's making ground in the Audi. 35 odd minutes left to go in this race. Lambo leading, Audi second, Mercedes 3, 4, 5, and they are the 5 cars that remain on the lead lap. Both the KTMs are in the pits, the McLaren's in the pits. Hadrian Morel stands to move up to 6th overall in the only trophy class Lamborghini, and the only car that is officially a retirement, because it's been stuck out on the track for some time now, is the Scott Taylor Craig Baird Mercedes-Benz. But as I say that, I think Trent Harrison might have resumed in the number 50 KTM to at least get rolling again, because those cars came to the pits with various problems at the same time.
Well, they both came in, yes, as you say.
One under its own power and one being towed.
Yeah, it was real dramas for both of the Motorsport KTMs. It had been pretty much bulletproof. We were talking, they did have some issues early in the piece, but essentially since that point, they've been relatively bulletproof. A drama for the 50 entry at Phillip Island that invoked the red flag period. There is the race leader, Shane Van Gisbergen. There'll be fans all over the country rejoicing on that point. Last time round, his lap time was a 1:48.9. So as you said, it ballooned out to 49s. This could be an economy run. There might be absolutely no issue here with the car at all. They just want to make sure that they get to the end. But the lead...
That's not set to Jet though, Sean.
No, that isn't set to Jet.
Is he selling us something that we shouldn't be buying?
Well, there's a few of these drivers telling us that there's no problems, when in fact there is an issue that needs to be considered. And the teams are managing this, but the driver's the nut behind the wheel, isn't he? He's really just another addition to the overall package. He does what he's told. He drives to his plan, if he's going to try and keep his job, certainly. But Shane Van Gisbergen, experienced in these kinds of conditions, he'd be happy to do this. I was going to throw you another curveball. We're talking about the 10 victories in 2005, the most for a GT championship. How many of these Enduros over the last 5 years has Shane Van Gisbergen won? It would be at least 3 by my reckoning.
Yeah, he's racked up a few.
At least one at Highlands Motorsport Park. I remember being there for that. A couple at Phillip Island alongside, well, certainly one alongside Tony Quinn. Garth Tander also won alongside Tony Quinn, and last time out for us alongside Garth Tander, the way he's going at the moment, these two could be comparing notes and blows for blows over the closing laps of this race, with Garth Tander's pace He last time round, no, he's in the next leg. It's just refreshed, so I've missed that one. But certainly he made up at least 4/10.
Well, it's under 30 seconds now. That's the marker, because it was 32, 31. Now it's 29.89 at the last sector. So Tander's getting about a second a lap. Do the math. 33 minutes to go. Margin 29.1 seconds. At this rate, doable.
Jamie Whincup, there he is on screen. There's some purple sectors coming. See what his pace is like. Last time round it was 1:48.2, so that's well off his 1:45.66 best. That is a new lap record for a GT3 car around the Bend Motorsport Park for the numbers 777 Bend Motorsport Mercedes. Yasser Shahin will be happy with that. In fact, Yasser Shahin was under Davey Reynolds' 2018 lap record during his stint, so to get to within a couple of seconds of Jamie Whincup, he'll be very happy with that too. And they charge on, but now down the order, 5th position for them, and a lap down on the race leaders after that drama on fuel.
Oh yeah, they've actually they're still in the lead lap, but only just though. 1 minute 34 off the lead, yeah. So all but, yeah, and he was there for a time before that pit stop sequence shuffled out. So he's been pretty much the fastest car on the road, but he's 52 seconds behind Alberto and a minute 34 off the lead of the race. So he's the guy that benefits most from a safety car in this late part of the race. They'll all benefit, but he'll get more than anyone.
That'd be game on, wouldn't it?
Ooh,
in the old NASCAR days, we could almost guarantee there'd be a safety car or certainly some debris on the circuit that might need some inspection late in the race just to make things interesting.
There's a chip wrapper there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's something there that might just bring the cars out. But anyway, the fact is we like to see this racing. These 3-hour endurance races are fantastic. It's great to see such a star-studded field racing here, almost be under lights. I can imagine the lights on the main straight will come on at some point. Certainly lights ablaze in all of these cars over the closing stages of this race. Nothing nicer than to see these guys in the twilight.
I tell you who's going ablaze. Tander, margin 27.5 seconds. He's continuing the hunt of Shane Van Gisbergen in the Lamborghini. These two, they don't have to fight later in the year. They're in the same car, but they've had plenty of good battles over the year. Now they're about to have another one. Never really in a Lambo and an Audi, but 27.5 seconds the margin, 31 minutes, just under 31 minutes on the clock. The graph is staying at the same level in terms of the margin coming down versus the time remaining. He's not hit a wall and not been able to go on with it. McLaren rejoining. Love to hear some more from Cam and the team in the lane to have a chat at what's gone wrong with that McLaren, if they can get to the bottom of... Clearly they're happy enough that they've got to the bottom of it to send it back onto the track. It rejoined 7th, but they'll be, I think, to the tune of 5 laps down. Yeah,
that's disappointing for them. But Tander's pace is impressive. He's been doing double duty with TCR this weekend. He was right in the fight, took a victory in the Audi RS3 LMS TCR earlier. Now he's in the Audi R8 LMS GT3, and he's pumping out lap after lap after lap in the 46s. He's not been outside the 46s. Yeah, go on, make a liar of me. 47.0 last time round.
Near enough.
We can make that a high 46. Great to see the safety stop Lamborghini, albeit briefly there. They are up to position number... They were 5, position 6 in this race. You did predict that was their likely outcome. Doing a great job. The Trophy Series designated car, of course, that is a generation older GT3 car, so that jumps out of the outright field to the Trophy Series field. They're not competing for championship points this weekend, but they are capable of competing in the field. So it was good for Richard Gartner and Hadrian Morel. They had a few dramas on Thursday, missed a whole heap of time. I bumped into Richard in the lift going up to commentary earlier in the day, and he said that they just didn't have the time. That would be the rim on the inside of the 59, a broken rim. So that's good news that it's not the brakes, but certainly that did a little bit of damage. That is a tough one, because I'd imagine with a new car, that won't be a particularly old rim. So some questions to be asked on that front. Could also be debris, of course, jammed in with the braking system. That may have caused some damage. Sunset looming. Sun's on the horizon. That'll be something for the drivers to contend with. How good a job is Dom Story doing? Tony D'Alberto, try as he might, cannot break the stranglehold that the 63 has had over the number 8 entry. First was Peter Hackett with Max Twigg. Max felt he didn't quite get the most out of the car, and Tony D'Alberto, unfortunately for him, unable to break through. Now, after the disappointment for the 63 entry during that drama after the red flag incident at the Phillip Island round of the championship, they dropped back down in the championship points. the number 8 entry, of course, they finished third. The 59, they finished second. And the number 1 entry, well, they won. This is going to just add to the championship advantage of Jeff Emery in the Australian GT Championship, but also to their championship points lead in the Australian Endurance Championship.
Van Gisbergen's been able to respond a little. It was only 4/10 that Tander got on the last time around, and to the first sector this lap, it's only a 10th. So with 28 minutes on the clock, he's been able to just stem that gap. So when you look at the gap of 26.9 seconds, time remaining 27 minutes 50 seconds, it's closing up. So he's been able to stem the tide a little bit on what he needs to do. Remember that we're looking at Dom's story, and although Tony D'Alberto's putting the pressure on, if you've just joined us, car number 8 with D'Alberto at the wheel will take a 5-second post-race penalty for crossing the blend line at pit exit on its last pit stop. It won't move it in terms of its positioning because it's 52 seconds down the road from Jamie Whincup. Let's head down to the lane. Cam, you got more?
Just to round out that story for you before on Fraser Ross and Ryan Simpson, it was actually, they believe the wheel nut wasn't actually done up tight, which has actually worked its way in. They believe, and what they've told me, the pegs that seat this disc in position have basically been shorn off, and that's then gotten into the rim, which has done all that damage you saw before. Another one for you guys as well, as they were set to get a penalty from a pit stop earlier for having 3 across the line, so it wasn't going to be a good end to their day anyway.
Well, Cam, the news is about to get worse for the number 59 McLaren because it's going to be issued a black flag, and because they had too many people over the line on the pit stop when it was in most recently. So when you're having a bad day, motor racing just not only steps on your toes, but it kicks you straight in the throat.
That's a cruel mistress some days, and for the 59 team, it went from hero effectively to zero very, very quickly, and when it's a technical issue like that, that's very, very frustrating. Great to see the 50 entry back out there pumping around. And, ooh, that's closed things up just a little bit. D'Alberto's closed right up on the tail of Dom Story now. Will this be an opportunity? He's got very, very close. I can't imagine that was just the lap car. Is there a drama with the 63? Let's see how this one plays out. This is very, very interesting. These guys in the number 8 entry really do need to try and make up some time. They're losing ground to the number 1 in this championship. This is round 2 of 3 in the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. The outgoing champions are the number 8. The 2017 champions are the 63 at the moment, leading the championship, and Audi has not yet won, despite all their victories, and certainly their 2 championships back-to-back in 17 and 18 for Jeff Emery. They have not yet won a CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. So interesting for them. There is a 5-second penalty going up on the board for D'Alberto. Jamie Whincup next one in line, so that's really not going to make any impact on this race.
Pit lane penalty's been taken now by the McLaren of Ryan Simpson in 7th place, and that just takes him back. He was about 20 odd seconds away from Hadrian Morel's Lamborghini for outright position for 6th place. So he's got 25 minutes to catch that ground back up, and Tony D'Alberto here with that 5-second penalty to be added to his race time. So for Dom's story, do you fight the car that you know is going to have a penalty, or if you let it by, you've got to make sure that you stay within 5 seconds of it? So you've really got to back yourself either way. 25 minutes to go, 25.6 seconds the margin, Van Gisbergen to Tander. So that ground that the Audi was able to make has stopped, as we thought it might, because Van Gisbergen's been able to do enough to roll on with that Lamborghini. He is in the box seat. They are controlling this race, Trofeo Motorsport, with that Lamborghini. 25.8 seconds the margin, 16 from Tander back to this fight between Dom Story and Tony D'Alberto, and another 50 seconds back to Jamie Whincup in the 777 Mercedes-Benz, the final car on the lead lap. Hadrian Morel, 6th in the trophy class Lamborghini, 5 laps down on the leaders. Ryan Simpson, 40 seconds behind on the road. So the McLaren can still pick up some extra points if he can get to that Lamborghini. Judging by the pace, he probably should. The KTM Crossbow, Trent Harrison, 8th overall, and Glenn Wood, the other car that were in the pits short for quite some time, have managed to get going again. They're separated by a lap and a half on the road at the moment, but clearly in the outrights they are a long, long way behind. So counting down this 3-hour GT Enduro at the Ben Motorsport Park, it's getting to the point where the headlights are really going to be needed here. The drivers are going to have to maintain the concentration and the mental focus that has got them to this point so far. And Van Gisbergen is in control in that Lamborghini. It's round 2 of 3 for endurance racing for GT cars. So there's actually two more, there's 2 Sandown trips this year, with one a sprint round for the GT Championship and one a focused enduro. This, of course, is a concurrent situation where there's points up for grabs for both the endurance and the GT Championship at the enduro weekends. And there's nothing between these two. Dom Story at 147.79, Tony D'Alberto 147.87. Remember, 5 seconds to be added to Tony D'Alberto's time because there's no more pit stops due to come. So that will be added on post-race. It won't move his position for he and Max Twigg.
I'm trying to do some rough.
I was going to say, how's that spreadsheet going?
I've gone silent. The abacus is working overtime, just trying to work out what the implications of this result is on the overall championship. Effectively, we negate the 129 entry because they weren't at Phillip Island. They were at Phillip Island, but not with this driver lineup. It was Joseph Ensabella and Tim Blanchard. They weren't to be here this weekend. That allowed Van Gisbergen and Talbot to step up. They'll get the full quota of 300 points. They also got good qualifying points. Won't worry too much about that. 10 down to 1 for the top 10. We go on to the real battle, which is between Jeff Emery and Max Twigg for the outright championship. The result of what's going on at the moment, if I can get back to it, is Jeff Emery effectively will take 265 points from this race, 195 as it stands at the moment, with Tony D'Alberto back there in 4th position. So this was important. This result for Tander and his charge through to 2nd position was important in this championship battle. This does help both he and certainly Jeff Emery, who's also leading after today. It'll be the conclusion of the 4th of 7 rounds of the Australian GT Championship in GT3. There's also a GT4 battle going on, and that battle will heat up too, because with the effective retirement of the number 48 entry, that will bring the number 50 Vantage Freight entry of David Crampton and Trent Harrison right back into this championship battle. Sounds like Emma has a bit of an update down there in pit lane.
Just watching on with Leanne, Tander and Garth, doing a great job. He is fair to say he's going to be pretty tired tonight.
Yeah, he's certainly been earning his money today. Double duties, TCR and the GT. He seems to be doing pretty well. I mean, I think Jeff did a great job earlier in the race and set them up, and yeah, it seems to be going good so far.
And Leanne, great to have you in the TCR lane again this weekend. How was race number 1 for you?
Yeah, it was a little bit frustrating. I think I had quite good pace, but I got turned around in the first corner and had to basically come back from last again. And then I had a 5-second penalty as well for a start infringement. My tyres were over the line on the start, so it wasn't my best ever race, but I think the pace is promising and I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Good luck for tomorrow. Thanks, Leanne.
Thanks.
It's not a bad list, is it? Van Gisbergen leads Tander, leads Story, leads D'Alberto, leads Whincup. Hadrian Morel will be pretty happy with that. I'm sure there'll be a screenshot of that one going into the laptop by the end of the weekend. Ryan Simpson, very disappointed to be further back down the line. Trent Harrison will be very happy, though, to be out there and potentially on target to gain maximum points in the battle for honours in GT4. On screen, that's Tony D'Alberto, still unable to do anything about Dom Story, and really in this battle for outright championship points, he needs to get past the 63 entry. They had a setback at Phillip Island. They're further down the championship list. But for Twigg and D'Alberto, as the reigning Australian endurance champions, they need to get back into this fight. And to allow the number 1 Valvoline Audi to get too far ahead in points, well, it's going to make life at Sandown a little bit more challenging. Of course, we go on to Sandown, which is the 3rd and final round of the endurance championship. That comes... trying to find notes feverishly.
Late September.
Thank you. It comes
Shannons
in
Nationals
late
round.
September
20 to 22. I've got a cheat sheet here. It's okay.
There you are. And,
but it's not the only Sandown trip left. There's 2 trips.
It's not. We go back on the 8th to the 10th of November with supercars. That is for the final sprint round. That's the final round of the championship, not the endurance championship. That's over by the end of the first Sandown. In the middle of that, of course, we go to the Gold Coast alongside supercars again late in October. So still plenty of miles left for the GT categories. Of course, we get Trofeo, Challenge and Trophy Series cars back into the mix for championship points alongside GT3 and GT4 by the time we go onto the Gold Coast. And that should be very, very interesting. But right at the moment, this battle heats up. We have less than 20 minutes to go. The light is fading. It's getting very dark outside. Lights ablaze on the car, and still the 63 and the 8. Well, what's that? 2 hours and 40 minutes into this race, continue to circulate not more than a couple of car lengths apart.
It's nice to have company, but this is ridiculous. These two cars have not left one another alone throughout this entire race so far. They've had quite a dice, quite a scrap. The update on the leaders is that Van Gisbergen leads by 27 seconds, so he's holding the margin. Here he is, the Queensland-based Kiwi on board the 129 Lamborghini, controlling the margin, comfortably in control. Back to Garth Tander, who has quite a handy buffer on that fight between Story and D'Alberto. Whincup is 5th. He's inching away and pulling back margin, but that time that he lost when that car ran dry on fuel, we didn't quite get to the bottom there. I wouldn't mind just covering off that story, if it's possible, from the lane on whether that was a mistaken radio call or a miscalculation in the pit lane or something weird happened there for them to get to that point. But luckily, they were able to limp their way back to the lane, refuel, get the car rolling again, and they sit 5th overall, the final car on the lead lap. But as Sean mentioned, look behind, have a look at the weather, have a look at the sky coming in. It's getting dark out there. The cameras actually make it look better than it really is from looking out our commentary box window. Yeah, the cameras are a bit nicer on the eye.
It's going to be very heavy work for these guys over the last 15 odd minutes. But what's interesting too is that Tander's now out into the 48, so that advantage he had early, he's probably just taken off the edge of the tyre. Really did charge very hard. They'll be on similar fuel loads. Won't need any more than just enough to make the car reach minimum weight. Well, that's good news too. There is the 48 entry, so they've got both of the GT4 KTMs out there on track, as Hadrian Merrill comes very close to just tagging the rear of the number 1. That wasn't his fault, of course, because Garth Tander is still charging, getting through the lap traffic. And this is important points. This is a championship. There's a championship within a championship. The CAMS Australian Endurance Championship, which is 3 3-hour races, Phillip Island, the Ben Motorsport Park and Sandown, and the 7-round Australian GT Championship. I'm not sure what gardening Glenn Wood thought he was doing on a Saturday afternoon, but I'm not so sure that the Motorsport team will be too impressed with that. Hadrian Morel coming down pit lane, and that will be their 4th stop.
Question that springs to mind, Sean, is because those KTMs are in the pit lane for, well, a fair amount of time that they were in the bunker, do they need to complete 75% of the outright race leaders' laps to be classified as finishers, or do they run because they're a class car? Because at the moment, having been sidelined for quite some time, they've done 57 and 56 laps. The leaders have done 84. They won't be at 75%.
About 67%, so that could be something up for discussion. I mean, they still need to cross the finish line on the last lap under their own power to be classified as finishers, but that makes for an interesting point. They're not going to impact, obviously, the outright result. Dom Story just stretches that advantage a little bit more.
Been able to stem the tide, hasn't he?
He has. He's weathered the storm, and he seems to be able to extend that advantage now. So it shows at about 1.1 seconds or thereabouts. Geez, look at that camera angle. That's a bit more reflective. It's an apt word, perhaps, of just what conditions are like. As the lights ablaze on the 48 entry, Glenn Wood will be charging around. He's been a very handy addition to the M Motorsport team. Seen them on the top step of the podium, Justin McMillan and Glenn Wood, the outright podium at various stages back when they were powered by a V10 Lamborghini. This is the 2-litre Audi turbocharged powered KTM crossbow. And good to see them both back on track. Another of the nice things about this time of day is you get to see those glowing discs under brakes. Some great shots. I'm sure Dirk Kleinsmith and Russell Puckridge and all the guys out there with cameras will be churning out some lovely images in this twilight.
Late stop for the Lamborghini.
Down there in the pit, doing a little bit of work.
Got the colour coordinated tape in though. That's always good when you can get it to match.
Pirelli coloured too. That's impressive. Lovely to see that. These guys making their return. Richard Gardner did a good job during the opening round of the season at the Melbourne Grand Prix. Had a couple of dramas, wound up the barriers at one stage, but enjoyed his weekend, that notwithstanding. Wasn't at Phillip Island. They're back into this race. Of course, Adrian's done a little bit of mileage in endurance racing over the last couple of seasons. And they're taking advantage of this opportunity to race here at the Ben Motorsport Park as part of Australian GT. There is the other of the Lamborghinis in the field. That is the Huracan GT3. Shout out to John Flynn, who manages the Audi program in this part of the world, certainly from Asia, and he's based in Singapore. He's watching on, and he'd be very happy with this. So too, Jim Manolius, the team boss at Trofeo Motorsport. This would be their best result. They've been on the podium at the Bathurst 12-hour in Pro-Am. Jim Manolius, part of the team, Ivan Capelli, Ryan Millier, who's down there running the team. He's the team manager this weekend, has done some miles in this car. Of course, Dean Canto, a big part of this team over recent years. Great to see Ivan Capelli, the former Ferrari F1 driver. That's what he's best remembered for. And of course, the footwork.
Leighton House. He nearly won a Grand Prix, one of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that car very much Adrian Newey designed, built around Ivan Capelli, who was one of the great drivers early in his career. Cam, more news down in pit lane.
Just closing the loop for you as we get to the end of the race here. In terms of Jamie Whitcomb, he ran out of fuel.
There was actually a warning light he didn't see. There was also a warning that the team didn't see, so miscommunication all round, unfortunately, for the 777. Now, in terms of Scotty Taylor, I'm not sure we actually covered off exactly what happened.
I just had a chat to Scotty himself a minute ago and said he actually made contact with the wall with the right rear around the 789 complex, and unfortunately broke some trailing arms that go back to the body. He said,
I wouldn't have been able to drive it back without causing mayhem, so I parked it up.
Thanks, Cam. Really appreciate that, closing off the loop for two of the storylines of this race. So Jamie Whincup still running, position 5, but a minute 22 off the lead. Shane Van Gisbergen leads, 27.8 seconds back to Garth Tander here in the number 1 Valvoline Audi. So not a bad day's work for GT. A win in the TCR race earlier on today. A trophy in second place looking likely for the GT race, and he's got 2 more TCR races tomorrow to have another crack at a few more trophies in the Audi, because he gets to start from pole position for the second race tomorrow, because progressive grid, where you finish today, you start race 2 tomorrow. So he's in a pretty good position to continue on a really good weekend. That light starting to fade, the glowing brake discs, the headlight glow, and this is the point that we got to. We were all thinking that with the way the sun was going down in previous days, it was here at just about 5:30 p.m. local time that it was starting to get really interesting for these drivers and teams. Never a good time to have your headlights covered by sponsor stickers for such races as these, because you kind of need them at this point of the day.
You do kind of need them. I wondered whether some of the teams might fit something a little bit brighter at the front of the car for the closing stages of this race. At the moment, not too bad. 48.3 for Van Gisbergen last time round. He stabilised that gap. He got it back out to a bit over 28 seconds last time round. It's back to 27.9 with a 48.35 for Garth Tander. So now the advantage swings back to the race leader. Shane Van Gisbergen is arguably the fastest car on the circuit at the moment, although Whincup might throw that myth out the window. See what the pace of the 777 car is further back, but it'll be frustrating for both team and driver to have missed a fuel warning light in the closing stages of the run. Again, talking about it earlier, the economy rate of the AMG is not quite as good as some of the other cars in the field, the likes of the Lamborghini and the Audi. So that was something that they would have been keeping a bit of an eye on, but it's certainly slipped through to the keeper, and that's frustrating to be set back that far when effectively you are right in this race again, as they were at Phillip Island. That was disappointing to see the car lose the right front wheel after that last stop. So that really, you could suggest that Yasser Shahin and Jamie Whincup would be right in this championship hunt, but that's not the way things have worked out, as Dom Story continues to hang on to 3rd position. Good result for them. Here we are on board with Jamie Whincup. Look at those sparks. That is spectacular. Look forward to seeing some of those photographs turn up on social media a little bit later this weekend. Of course, this is it for Australian GT this weekend for this round. This is the 3-hour race over. You get Sunday off to recover from what has been another epic race. Shout out to Jason Dunstan, who's out there. He should be back in this championship before too much longer. Back with Tony Quinn, who is going to debut the brand new Aston Martin Vantage GT3 alongside Darren Turner at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in British GT next weekend. And we're hoping to see that car back for Sandown a little bit later this year for the final round of the Endurance Championship, and have Quinny back in this race.
You say Spa, I get excited. What a place, what an awesome place for GT racing, whether it's the 24-hour that for so many years was a touring car classic, and then it nearly died. It came to its knees, and it's been reborn as this amazing part of the Longpan series. And I think last time I checked, 72 cars from memory.
72 cars, and Yasser Shahin will be on the grid as part of an Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup entry in 2 weeks' time for that event. That should be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be great to see. This is the ever-present Mercedes fight that we've been watching for the last nearly 3 hours. And have a look at that shot. It's starting to get really dark here at the Ben Motorsport Park. Thank you for staying with us with our live streaming coverage of this second round of the Australian Endurance Championship with the GT cars. This is their race for the weekend. Tomorrow, though, we're back with plenty more racing, with more TCR, with more Formula 4, with more sports sedans, more improved production. The stream starts tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. local time here in South Australia, 10:45 a.m. on the eastern state, on the east coast. This is the McLaren that was in the mix for so long today. Ryan Simpson has got it rolling again, is now 6th overall, but he's 5 laps behind the next car in front, Jamie Whincup. So dramas with the brakes and ended up with a split rim as a result. But for a second there, I thought that was pretty terminal. They might not get back out onto the track, but they're going to get some points at this stage, which in a smaller field this weekend, that's probably a good thing for them to be. Rather than a bigger field, they would dump more points when they have a problem like that. So every now and then you do get a little bit of a help when it goes wrong for you. 7.5 minutes to go. It's a case now of just bringing it home.
It certainly is a case of bringing it home. 147s for Ryan Simpson, so the pace still right there. Jamie Whincup, by contrast, he did a 46.3 last time round. Absolutely screaming. Look at those sparks. You can't take the racer out of the racer, can you? He's just going to keep charging towards the closing stages. I'm pretty sure that Shane Van Gisbergen's just backed things off a little bit to make sure that car gets to the end on fuel. It was going something like 68 minutes on its last run. He was one of the first to stop because he took advantage of that safety car intervention for the stationary 48 KTM of Glenwood. And that opportunity gave him a chance to leapfrog everybody behind the safety car, close up, and he put that advantage to good use. By the time Garth Tander came out, he was 38 seconds back. He's closed up 12 seconds, but that's across an hour. That's all GT's able to have been able to make up. With less than 6.5 minutes left in this race, about 3 laps left, and that would be a fantastic victory to Shane Van Gisbergen. Well, another fantastic victory. We still haven't worked out the number, but I think this might be number 4 in the endurance races for Australian GT. He has been a great addition to the championship over past years, but for Liam Talbot, he'll be very happy to come back into Australian GT and be standing on the top step alongside a driver the calibre of Shane Van Gisbergen. But certainly, he played a big part in this. He wasn't far off that battle of those 3 storming Mercedes AMGs across the opening legs of this race. He sat back in about 5th position, watched that unfold, the McLaren in that mix too, and Liam Talbot definitely contributed to this result. But a great strategy call by the team will give, essentially, we are a few laps out, but the very first victory to Trofeo Motorsport and the Lamborghini Huracan in Australia. So top result to the team. Look at that, that's dark. It's blackout. I can't see anything outside our windows.
You talked about Van Gisbergen. Remember, he did win with Clark Quinn at Highlands Motorsport Park in New Zealand back in, that was 2015 that you mentioned earlier on.
Yep.
And when you roll back through the results over the years in Australian GT, Liam Talbot's been a winner before at Highlands in 2013 in the Audi with Rod Salmon.
Oh, of course he was.
Yeah, going
that
back
was
some
a great
way.
victory.
Yeah, yeah. And Van Gisbergen a winner with Clark Quinn. Now, that was a weird one in terms of it was the 12-hour, but it was an Australian GT round.
I think he won the first event with Tony Quinn, didn't he? The first Highlands 101.
Yeah, 2013 in the Aston Martin.
There you go.
Yep.
Yep, so he's certainly taken some great results. He's always a great addition to Australian GT. Great to see his Red Bull Racing teammate Jamie Whincup in the field. Hasn't enjoyed the luck. This has really been it's been a bit of a parallel to his season in supercars this year, hasn't it? It's been a very big job to try and eke out a result for Whincup, but nice to have him in the field. Certainly been a great addition to Yasser Shahin's operation. And we'll look to see them rebuild at Sandown. I'm sure they'll be hoping to get onto the top step of the podium. Had things gone slightly differently, look at how dark it is now. What a great view. That's what we love to see about GT racing. Bright lights on the main straight. Can only be a couple of laps left for Shane Van Gisbergen, still holding a 25-second advantage. Don't think we'll see GT in the background here. The kart's still going around. What a fantastic complex the Ben Motorsport Park has been. Yasser Shahin, Sam Shahin and their families have really built a great facility here for Australian Motorsport. Great to have the second run here for Australian GT on the circuit. A lot different conditions this year to what it was last year. The circuit has certainly taken a huge step forward, and promises from the team here at the Bend Motorsport Park that this is only the beginning. So we look forward to coming back in coming seasons. What a race this has been, Noons. It's been no shortage of excitement throughout the race. And to see the drivers of this calibre still pushing hard, still running strongly. And Shane van Gisbergen at the point in a car that hasn't taken the top step yet. Another mark he can cross off. Racing, he'd not been in a Lamborghini GT3 car prior to this weekend. And to tick this one off will be, I'm sure, very satisfying.
And the call to pit under that safety car was, it made the race.
That was the move of the race, absolutely.
Remember that Liam Talbot was running around 5th, 6th, the last of the championship cars in that opening stint. Had a little slip off the road where he lost a bit of time, but the call to bring them in under that last safety car, and the knowledge that they'd be good on the run home, that was their final stop. They'd have the fuel and the tyres and the driver on board that they needed, and really he's controlled the pace. Tander's worked hard. He bought margin. He got a second a lap there for a fair time, and then he's hit a wall. It's 23.8 seconds, 2.5 minutes on the clock. And he hasn't been able to get any further. So Van Gisbergen has run a really managed race in this final stint to get home to finish this off at the Bend Motorsport Park. We have nearly hit the 3-hour mark. It's 3 hours plus a lap for the time of this race. And Tander's going to bring it on home with a podium on the line for he and Jeff Emery in what has been a good run by the Melbourne Performance Centre team, and Eric Pender and Troy Russell and the whole team there have done a nice job again to bring this car up the order. Remember, they started from position 6 and they're staring down the barrel of a trophy for P2.
The race is actually 5:38 plus a lap, so we're just gone local time 5:38. So effectively, this should be about the last lap. Or do we have second last lap? Okay, one more to go after this. So I think they might have just got to the line before the clock ticked down. But Garth Tander, he really is somebody you want as part of your team, isn't he? He does it time and time again. He's been a great addition to the Audi Sport program. They've paid back, obviously, with the support of the TCR program for he and wife Leanne. And he will certainly help the way things are going now. Fuel, notwithstanding in the 129 Lamborghini. He will certainly help Jeff Emery to carry on as the championship points leader, extend his advantage in the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship, and give Audi what they've been missing in all these years of success. They've never won the endurance title. This could be the first year. It was McLaren 3 seasons ago. It's been Mercedes AMG for the last couple of seasons. This year could well be the year of the 4 rings. As Shane van Gisbergen carries on, still turning out good, solid, consistent laps, still maintains that advantage. It's down to, well, it's down to 21 seconds now, just dipped below 21 seconds last time round. But the clock's wound down, the laps are winding down, about 1 lap to go. And there's the black Lamborghini, Hemakinesis, Trofeo Estate, Trofeo Motorsport on his last lap. Shane van Gisbergen. It was a time certain race for 5:38 plus a lap prior to the start of the race. They brought it forward with the cancellation of the pit walk. It was a little chilly and a little damp just prior to the start of the race. I'm not sure I would have been hustling out there. The most comfortable place to be would have been sitting behind the wheel with the engine running, I think. But certainly that brought us forward a little bit. If we'd gone another 10 minutes later, I'm pretty sure it would have been about pitch black. And I'm not quite sure, short of the timing monitor, how we would have picked the cars. The KTM still going around. Trent Harrison in position number 8, leading the GT4 category. Glenn Wood still charging around. They're not doing a bad job. 157.7 for Glenn Wood is the fastest. 159.6 for Trent Harrison. He would have hoped to have been a little bit closer than that. Well, I'm charging around. That's hardly charging around. I can make out that is the 48. Macmillan Engineering Group, KTM, just crawling its way around the last legs of this race. But up front, into the sunset, these shots are going to be absolutely fantastic. And shout out to Mark Griffith. He's at his daughter Amy's 21st birthday. He should be here. He wished he was here at his Benz. He's not. Enjoy the party. Wish the best to Amy from all of us and the Australian GT family. We're loving this. This is what a great weekend. Another stellar result for Australian GT. A great result too for Shane van Gisbergen and Liam Talbot. He hasn't quite made it to the line, but I think they can forget all about that now. First ever victory for the Lamborghini. The 129 entry of Trofeo Motorsport crosses the line to take round 2 of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. Maybe that's the fuel done now.
And he's going to roll this on home at the slowest possible margin.
Well, he's
right
a team
in front
player.
of the team.
What
Right in front of the team.
A fantastic result. Garth Tandy, you can see in their top of screen coming through the final corner. Position 2, extending the championship points lead. And here's a surprise, the 63 leading car number 8. That's about as far apart as they've been for the last 3 hours. Celebration, Jim Manolius and his team down there. A good result. Ryan Millier, right of screen. He's usually behind the wheel in these results, but he's there steering the ship for the Trofeo Motorsport team this weekend. So he'd be very happy with that. And Liam Talbot too. What a great result. Mikey Harland has joined the team recently. They're all very happy down there. This is a great result for the sport, also for the team. So congratulations to them. And, well, SVG, what can you say? He's done it again.
Made the call, that team on the pit stop for that last safety car, put them in the box seat, and the Kiwi drove it home. Margin of victory was 15 seconds in the end, but he just did what he needed to do to bring it on home. So it's a win for the Lambo. Garth Tander, home in second spot. He and Jeff Emery, crucial points for Jeff's GT Championship and for their Endurance Championship. Dom Story, third with Peter Hackett on the podium, making up for the drama in the last round of Phillip Island. Tony D'Alberto, plus 5 seconds to that time, doesn't change their result. He and Max Twigg, good points. Jamie Whincup, what could have been for he and Yasser Shahin in P5. Dramas for the McLaren, but they get to the line. The Lambo next from the 2 KTMs, and a DNF for Scott Taylor and Craig Baird. Wow, job done. The GTs are finished. Thanks, Sean. Great job, everybody. Oh, boy, what a big day at the Bend. We get to do it all again tomorrow.
When I was a kid, I loved cars.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life.
My life is hot rods, designing them, building them, and racing.
Hand built with a stainless steel roof.
I've won the Monte Carlo Rally 4 times.
Like Dad, I've always been a Ford man.
In '71, this was the fastest 4-door car in the world.
Insurance? Shannons, of course.
Safer vehicle choices save lives. Find out who survives.
Stay in the moment, they say, but you're 4 steps ahead. Executing plans you've rehearsed countless times before, and moving on to the next thing. Because if you think you're done, you've only just begun. At Michelin, we never stop thinking about our next move. Or yours.
Are you a motoring enthusiast? Shannons are giving you the chance to win a trip to the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indy 500. Kick off in New York, then drive from Chicago to the Indianapolis 500 and Nashville in a Lincoln Continental. Visit some of America's unique automotive museums and collections, with up to $5,000 spending money for eligible Shannons Club members. Plus, win a new Indian Scout motorcycle. To enter, get a quote on your special car, spouse's car, daily drive, your bike or home. Take out a new policy for even more chances of winning. Call Shannons on 13 46 46 or go online today.
Back at the Ben Motorsport Park to wrap up what's been a massive day in the Shannons Nationals. Great day for Audi in TCR with a win for Garth Tander, but it's all about the Lambo in the Australian Endurance Championship. A win to Shane van Gisbergen and Liam Talbot. Let's head down to Emma Francesco.
Thanks, Noons. Shane van Gisbergen, Liam Talbot, the winners. Congratulations, starting with you, Shane. Add it to your very long list of achievements.
Oh man, that's another team win 2 weeks in a row. Like, I saw the accident, knew it was going to be a safety car, or car stopped, and then the team did a good job. Quickly realised we could get to the end and get in before the safety car, and then just managed to lead. But Liam did an awesome job at the start. Really tricky when it rained, and then the pace was pretty good. So, man, awesome weekend. Thanks to the team for having me. Trofeo Motorsport. I've had an awesome weekend.
It's been great to have you here. And Liam, good call, because you only made the decision last week to come here and race this.
Yeah, it was too good an opportunity to say no to, but yeah, like SVG said, out in the race with the rain, it was just diabolical, and you sort of think you're okay, and then you're like, oh, and just trying to hold on. So that's pretty exciting.
What was that sound again, sorry? Ladies and gentlemen, your winners, congratulations, well done. As we head to the guys in second position, Garth Tander, Jeff Emery, well done. Garth first, what a massive day it's been to you. Pretty good day's work. A win for TCR and a podium for this one.
Yeah, good day. Jeff did a great job in the first stint. The car was quite tricky in the greasy conditions early, and did a great job just to keep it on the island, and then that safety car probably helped us a bit. But the car was so fast. It was unbelievably good. So all credit to the NPC, Audi Sport Australia guys. They gave us a great car. It's great for Jeff's championship as well. So, yeah, good day. I win in TCR. I wanted another win, and I didn't want him to win. I didn't want Shane to win. But anyway, it's good fun and a great result.
Best of luck for tomorrow, Jeff. I know you've had a lot of fun this weekend, that's for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, no, fantastic weekend. Obviously, I struggled in the first stint, but Garth did a mega job to bring us up to the pointy end. So, no, very happy. And obviously, it's awesome for both our championships. So, I think we're leading the endurance and the GT championship now. So, yeah, it's
your own deep.
Really, really good for the boys NPC. They did a mega job. The car's been faultless all year, and I guess that's proven from where we are in the standings.
Thanks, Jeff. Well done. And in third position, heading over to Dominic Story and Peter Hackett. Peter, always smiling. You've got to be happy with the podium.
Yeah, it's great. Dom did an unbelievable job when you look at the podium. You know, Shane, Tander, Dom, and then Tony D'Alberto and Jamie Winkup. So to be the first AMG GT3 home is fantastic. It's really great. Don McCarver's here. We'd like to say thanks for their support this weekend. And, you know, it's a good bag of points for us.
And obviously strategy is key. Well done to your team. They got it down pat.
Yeah, they did a good job. I'm still trying to work out how Shane ended up so far up in the lead, but we'll have a look at that later on, and I'm sure he did a good strategy call somewhere along the way when the safety car came out. But yeah, that was a long stint, and just towards the end with the darkness, you know, having the light shining from the pit building was quite difficult over the back section. So that was actually one of my first times in the dark, so it was pretty good. It was an enjoyable race, but yeah, really happy.
Great work, guys. Congratulations. Noons?
Good job, Emma. 3 different cars in the top 3 positions on the podium. So a win for Lamborghini, second for Audi, and third for Mercedes-Benz AMG. That is the second round of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship, the 4th round of the Australian GT Championship, and they've got 3 more race meetings to go. 2 at Sandown, 1 at the Gold Coast to cover off those 2 titles within the titles. Let's have a look at the replay. 3 hours of racing here at the Ben Motorsport Park, and at the start, within 3 seconds, we almost lost the 3 Mercedes-Benz. Look at this. Yasser Shahin round the outside, contact with Max Twigg, and a little rub too on Peter Hackett's car, but they all managed to get away with it at the very start of the race. The KTMs were having their own private fight, but then they had a couple of problems of their own. In the end, they weren't classified as finishers because they spent too much time in the pit lane. Shahin on the move, fighting with Max Twigg over and under. The Crossbow KTMs in the GT4 class. The Justin McMillan Glenwood 48 car later found itself with the drama, but this one was a small little issue. This was more of an issue. Too far away from the fuel rig, and couldn't quite plug it in to car number 50. A dive from Max Twigg. Down the inside at turn 1, got the move done. Those two cars weren't separated by much all day. Scott Taylor made contact with the fence, and the damage to 222 was enough that he decided not to try to limp it back to the lane. An instant retirement, Craig Baird, not getting race laps today. The number 50 KTM went to the pits. The number 48 car was stranded on the road at virtually the same time, and it was towed back to the lane. Jamie Whincup instantly made the move, attacking Ryan Simpson in the McLaren. But Ryan was up for the fight. He covered off the 7-time Supercars champion for a little while. And then Tander in the Audi was making moves forward as well, sharing with Jeff Emery. Refueling for Jamie Whincup. They'd had dramas with this car. He'd run out of fuel but limped it back to the lane, and then a problem with the brakes for car 59. Split the wheel rim of the McLaren, and that sent Whincup back to the tail of the lead lap. He pushed hard to the end. Finished 5th. Up front, his Red Bull teammate had a win last weekend in Townsville that had a bit of strategy to it, had a bit of work done to get them there, and they did it again here. The Trofeo Motorsport team picking up the win in the Lambo. There's Jim Manolios, the team owner, and Shane's delivered a win along with Liam Talbot for them. 15 seconds was the margin at the end. 94 laps of racing were complete in the 3 hours, and Garth Tander there, the man who finished 2nd. They'll be together later in the year at Bathurst, the Gold Coast and Sandown. But for today, they were fighting tooth and nail, but it was the Kiwi who got the win. Adding it to his resume of wins in various types of GT cars here in Australasia and indeed around the world. It will be a great podium celebration. Let's head there now. Master of Ceremonies is Cameron van der Ducken.
It's time to celebrate the podium for round 2 of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship and round 4 of the CAMS Australian GT Championship. Making tonight's presentations, Chris Montgomery from Pirelli Motorsport. In 3rd place from Eggleston Motorsport, Peter Hackett and Dominic Story. In 2nd place, Valvoline's Jeff Emery and Garth Tander. And last but most certainly not least, the winners of round 2 of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship from Hymokinesis and Trofeo Estate, Liam Talbot and Shane van Gisbergen. Gentlemen, the podium is yours.
Great job to Shane van Gisbergen and Liam Talbot. They win here at the Bend Motorsport Park. It's been a massive day with the Shannons Nationals. We'll be back tomorrow with our live streaming coverage. 2 more races from the Car Sales TCR Australia Series. The Thunder of the Sports Sedans returns, the improved production cars, and we'll finish off the Formula 4 season as well. Champagne time for Liam Talbot on the podium. That was a great idea to come and race a GTK this weekend because he picks up a win. Good points too for Peter Hackett and Dom Story. Thank you for your company today on behalf of the entire team. I'm Aaron Noonan. We'll see you tomorrow with more action from the Bend Motorsport Park.